I wonder if one day we could do like an April Fool's podcast where we just talked about non-fountain pen hobbies that you and I are into. Didn't even mention, like, it would be just all about like comic books, video games, woodworking, and
I feel like that's what half this
welding
thing is.
You're right. We do have those days. It's like half and half.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be an April.
It wouldn't be a joke. It would probably
No.
take an hour for people to recognize what's even
Yeah,
happening.
they're like, oh, they haven't mentioned pens yet.
Oh, that's funny.
It's 2 hours and 30 minutes in. Interesting.
That's right.
Yeah, you're right. The April Fool's would
Not
be to
enough
just
of it.
stay on topic.
That would be
That would be the jarring
a
moment.
short, concise pencast on topic. That would be a joke.
People would be upset.
They really would.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
I am.
Okay.
I have
let's do it.
I have my rollerball because
Why do you need that?
I have no pens inked up right now.
Get out of here.
I have a pile of drying pens on my
Okay.
desk,
Okay.
but I have nothing currently inked.
Mine are drying right now. They're just drying with ink in them
Oh, that's what
because
we
I'm
do.
not cleaning them. Eventually, they'll dry out.
Excellent. No, they're all dismantled, just kind of airing out. But yeah, right now I have no active fountain pen.
Okay. I did clean a pen today, and then I immediately inked it back up.
Oh.
It's the Custom A23 that we're going to show.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
It's the circle of life.
That's right. All right. Ready?
Yes.
Welcome, everybody, to episode number 137 of the Goulet Pencast, where fountain pens are still a thing. I'm Brian Goulet,
I'm Drew Brown.
and Drew's going Super Saiyan right now. We're here from Goulet Pens to deliver this casual and informal, tangential and extraneous, superfluous and extemporaneous fountain pen show, where we talk about what's going on at the Goulet Pen Company and in our fountain pen lives. In today's show, we're going to be talking about which nibs write the wettest, advantages and disadvantages of ebonite feeds versus plastic feeds.
No, not yet.
Oh,
We killed that one.
oh, we did kill that one. Forget
Yep.
that one. That one will be forthcoming
Next time.
at some point. What to do if you run your pen through your clothes washer / dryer. Our favorite non-standard nib sizes or grinds. The most absurd material that we would want to see a pen made from. And we'll be spotlighting the Pilot Custom 823 signature nib and showing you the new clear pen and all that good stuff. Should be fun. So hope you enjoy this episode. We'll start it off with some feedback.
All right. Kicking things off with Jay Cortez. We've got a comment that says, I think the thing about fountain pens. Oh, we're talking about intersecting hobbies. Did you get some grounds?
No, I had a little bit of cold brew coffee left, and I finished the bottle. So I was like, I want more coffee than this. So I brewed some hot coffee, and I was like, I'll just put a bunch of ice in it to cool it up. But it's like not cold. It's just like room temperature now. So now I'm just drinking like room temperature.
That's
coffee.
the worst.
It's not great.
No, it's either hot or cold. That in between is
Yeah,
a weird place to
It's
live
like,
in.
just make up your
Well, leave it
mind.
alone.
I want
Let it
coffee
get
though. I
cold.
need coffee. And I didn't fill my water because I was like, oh, I got coffee. So I got a little bit of water. But I need fluids to make it through this thing, man.
Fair enough.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
All right. In regards to the crossover of different hobbies, Jay Cortez says, I think the thing about fountain pens is that they intersect with so many subcultures, all of which are very different. You have crafters, scrapbookers, wet ink sketch artists, stationery fans, dudes in flat caps and that smoke pipes and like pocket knives, straight razors, mustache wax, steampunkers who like old Victorian and Edwardian gadgets, people who like luxury brands like LV bags, BMWs, and fancy pens, and more. Fountain pens overlap with all of them. You're right. It's kind of crazy in that way.
This is all stuff that's like pretty close to fountain pens too.
Mhm.
Like the subcultures, I think, deviate out even farther from this.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about like knitters and wet shavers and all this kind of stuff, everyday carry people. Anyway,
Yeah, it definitely. No, you're not off there.
I guess straight razors. I don't know. Straight razors is not just wet shaving. It's like a subset of
Yeah, that's
know,
a subset of a subset.
safety.
subset.
Safety razors are like the
Right.
mainstay of the
Straight
wet
razors.
shaving.
That's next level.
Yeah.
That's Sweeney Todd stuff.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe that person is also into Victorian gadgets, which there you go.
it
Go
fits.
full Sweeney.
Steampunk, the whole thing. Yeah.
All right, Pens and Whales says, and again, reference to the tangential hobbies, I visit and photograph ancient trees.
Ooh.
The oldest being the Fortingall yew, approximately 5,000 years old,
Whoa.
and ponder the things that have happened in the world while it simply stood and grew and remained silent, perhaps judging but not speaking. It grounds me and connects me with nature and the past in the same way my pens connect me with thoughts and words in a way no other pen ever has. Wow. Because I
cool.
mentioned how I thought something from, 1674 in coin form was grounding and connective. That pales in comparison to standing in front of a 5,000-year-old living object.
That is pretty crazy.
Like the gravity.
I mean, that's like the oldest living thing, right?
It has to
like
be
a tree.
It has to be. Yeah.
It's got to be.
So I cannot wrap my head around that. It would melt my brain if I sat and just stared at something that
that's
old.
like before the ancient pyramids were built.
I can't comprehend that. And I think if I tried, my brain would just kind of fall out of my nose. I don't know. But I would love to try. Like that is attractive to me. Like the allure of kind of breaking your brain in that regard.
Yeah.
Because when you get there, you not only feel completely overwhelmed, tiny, insignificant, and nothing, you also feel kind of like, how am I here? Like, this is amazing. Like, so yeah, it's that weird kind of dichotomy of kind of worthlessness and specialness.
We're getting existential here at the top of the podcast.
It's cool.
Not just purely coincidental. I have some ancient wood stuff that I'll be talking about in the Pencast today.
I thought you might think this was cool. Yeah. And then finally, Min Trong says, under $100 pen. Clearly the answer is the TWSBI Precision, Drew, which I guess must be a joke because I don't think that TWSBI makes a pen called the Precision, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Someone's mentioned this before, which I think is
it's funny.
It's odd.
It keeps coming up.
I don't know. People are weird.
Yep. Well, Howard David says, I don't know how, but you guys managed to consistently make a 2-hour show about pens interesting and funny. Keep it up. I don't know how either. We genuinely do not set out to make them this long. It just happens. Rena Thomas says, Brian, that's a great way to teach children budgets and savings. My dad was the same way. I thank him for getting me into my career in accounting. Great teaching skills. So talking about, pens and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
We were talking about
getting kids into pens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of spun it in a way that
it teaches them about like how to take care of nice things.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah. Kids are ready to learn, man. I'm telling you. I don't treat my kids like kids so much. I treat them like little adults. And it's like, I find that you set that bar, not in like a patronizing kind of way.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't over kidify everything.
Yeah.
I just talk to them like, hey, here's what's going on in the world. This is what you're facing. And if they don't understand it, I'm like, you'll get there.
Yep. I try to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I have no tolerance for baby talk. I never have.
Yeah. Rachel and I have never been big on baby talk either.
That's a train.
We do it now, though, to be snarky to our kids.
Oh,
because
of course.
They think it's funny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're a great trolling age.
Absolutely. And then we've got Pete Azuz says, first, thank you guys for what you do. Always informative and entertaining. Love being able to take the time over a weekend to watch what you produce. And it pretty much takes a whole weekend at this point. I added that. That was not what Pete said. With regard to the pen spotlight question, perhaps revisit pens that have different nib choices. Music nib, zoom nib, naginata togi, stub, some of your pens with custom nib grinds, etc. This is good feedback, actually. We didn't even have this feedback when we planned to talk about the signature nib on the Custom 823. Just happened to arrive and we wanted to talk about it, but I think we're kind of already doing it. And that makes a lot of sense, actually. So Pete, here you go. It'll be happening right now.
We got a lot of good feedback on the pen spotlight section, mentioning ink spotlights and accessory spotlights. Definitely. So we are going to take all that into account. We appreciate you who commented, and we weren't joking about why we needed that feedback. We are going to take it to heart.
Do we call it the pen spotlight though? If it's not spotlighting a pen, I don't know. I guess we just call it the spotlight.
Yeah. Ink spotlight.
I don't know.
Paper spotlight. Accessory
Nothing
spotlight.
is set in stone with this whole Pencast thing. Cool. Okay, that's it for feedback. Let's talk about new stuff. All right, so I have a few new things to mention. One of them is a new Banu, which we say quite often because we often have new Banus.
New Banu.
It's a new Banu Euphoria fountain pen. And it's an exclusive special edition that we have designed with them called Rose Tea. So all of the Euphorias have like it's meant to be like a treat not necessarily a drink, but I think everything that we've developed
A
with
pleasure,
them has been a drink.
a delight. Yeah.
Yeah. So rose tea continues on that theme. There's real rose petals in there because Banu is awesome. So yeah, this is like full on pink roseness happening. It's a really good looking pen though. Pink is not necessarily like my go-to color, but I don't know. The way this one turned out looks pretty awesome. I mean, Banu just keeps on crushing it. $157 for that pen. It's a special edition, but we can reorder them. I know we're out of the matcha right now because those were pretty hot out the gate. We're getting more of those whenever Badu can make them. And it'll be the same thing with the rose tea. If they sell really well, then we'll carry more. So keep buying them. We'll keep making them. All right. Next pen I have is the Esterbrook Model J in 2 colors, violet and blackberry.
Yes.
Not to be confused with Lami's violet blackberry or blackberry. Lord, I'm getting them mixed up. Blackberry violet, right? Or is it violet black?
I thought it was violet blackberry, but we're not talking about the
I think
Lamy.
it is, but you know what it is we had it on our blog post. The historical blog post was backwards. I had to double take, so I went and fixed that this weekend. And now I'm genuinely not.
No.
I'm getting it confused. I mix up words a lot already as it is. Anyway, so that has nothing to do with Lamy because this is Esterbrook. But they have 2 colors. So the violet, being completely honest, in my mind, is really more of a lavender color. So I keep wanting to call it lavender in my mind. I'm like, that's not right. It's violet. So it's like a lighter purple color.
A little taupey.
A little bit, a little hint of brown, but it's still pretty purple. It's just very, very light purple. And then we have blackberry, which is a more of a plum color, like a darker kind of purple, but not like royal purple. It's not that purple. It's got a lot of red, like brown kind of to it as well. Anyway, cool pens. The Model J, it's got that nice little hammered like kind of band around the middle of it. It looks really classy. This model's been fairly well received from Esterbrook as it is. So 2 new colors have come out with it. Looks pretty good. These are $265.50 each. And these are ebonite body. So that's kind of cool. So you don't see that every day, especially in these kind of colors. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's part of the cost too. The higher cost, ebonite costs more. And then they've got Yovo number 6 nibs on there, stainless steel in fine, medium, or the journaler nib. I think that one's a little bit more than, right?
I haven't checked.
I think that one costs a little bit
Usually
more.
they are a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a premium. But anyway, kind of cool. So check those out. And then last but not least, we have the TWSBI Diamond 580 AL in iceberg lettuce. I'm kidding. It's iceberg blue, but I keep wanting to call it iceberg lettuce every time I see iceberg. But it's blue. It's a nice light blue color. Looks really good. It's not worlds different from another blue that they had a while ago, and I don't remember the name of it, but they have had a blue. I don't know if it was in the 580 AL. It might have been in a mini. I'm not totally sure, but anyway, it's a nice looking blue. They haven't had that color for years, so if you're interested, go check it out. $65. Can't go wrong. Drew, what do you got?
I've got some stuff. Actually, I've got one stuff, and all it is a Sailor Pro Gear, but it is multiple Sailor Pro Gears.
Yes,
so Sailor is coming out with a Pro Gear Slim collection called the Wagashi Japanese Sweets Collection. All of these pens are going to be $236. And we've got the Manju, the Sakuramochi, the Kohakuto, the, Narikiri, and I think we've got one more. Yes, the Tsukimi Dango. And all of these, let's see, I'm going to show you pictures here. So the Manju, we've got, this one is inspired by a steamed bun filled with red bean jam. It's a brown cap and body with tan finials, gold trim. All of these are also going to come with a Shikiori ink, 20 mils. So that's packaged in free. They are gift sets. Moving on to the Sakuramochi, we've got that one inspired by mochi, wrapped in salted sakura leaf. Green cap and body, pink finials, gold trim. Kohakuto resembles the jewel-like shine of a semi-dried agar jelly. Don't know what that is, but it's got a light lavender cap and body, blue finials, and gold trim.
I'm getting hungry.
You don't even know what Kohakuto is.
I might have eaten it. I'm not sure.
But I mean,
I went to Japan and ate all kinds of
stuff. If it was in front of me, I'd eat it. All right. Nerikiri reflects the artistic blend of shiroan, which is white bean paste, and guhi, rice flour. So don't know what that looks like, but it has a red cap and body. it has yellow finials, and it has gold trim. And finally, Tsukimi Dango evokes the tradition of enjoying round rice dumplings under the moonlight.
Ooh.
Yes, not just round rice dumplings anywhere. Under the moonlight is where this pen is inspired from. So it's got a purple cap and body, white finials, and gold trim. So there you go. They're all packaged in a fun box that is reminiscent of the whole Japanese sweet thing. I am not super connected to this as an experience, but from what I understand, it is accurately portrayed if you are somebody who has experienced Japanese culture and these within that. So I'm not going to pretend like I know exactly what's going on here. But
dumplings under moonlight sounds pretty appealing, though.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say no to any of these, I don't think. Don't know about the bean paste, but who knows? They're very cool looking pens. And
I would imagine the bean paste has to have like some sugar in it.
I hope so.
It's not just like mushed up beans, right?
I have no idea.
Because this is like jelly, right?
Sure.
Like bean paste jelly, whatever.
I don't know. I'm not going to reread all those, but they're there if you want them. They're available now. We know the Pro Gear Slim is a fantastic pen, and Sailor always does a great job in, communicating interesting ideas, inspirations, and stories behind their color selection. So this is certainly no exception.
There you go.
Check them out.
Awesome. That's it for new stuff right now. You can check out new arrivals and coming soon stuff on gouletpens.com because there's stuff kind of happening all the time. All right, let's talk about very brief company updates. All right, don't have a ton to update here other than we are probably slowing down a little bit as far as like new products go. Every year this happens as we get into like the summer months, school lets out, people start traveling. There's just a little less going on. People aren't staring at their desks quite as much. So everything slows up a little bit, but that's totally fine. So we're still doing our thing, still launching stuff all the time. All right, I think that's it for company updates.
Yeah.
So let's get on to the Q&A.
All right.
We're rolling right along, Drew.
Yeah. A user by the name of Picture Perfect Cigars asks us our first question of the day. And that happens to be, which nibs write the wettest?
And this is with an exclamation mark and a question mark. So
Picture Perfect Cigars is very curious.
Emphatically questioning this.
Yes.
Which nibs write the wettest? Okay. So, I mean, obviously the paper, the ink, those all have an impact as well. But I figure we can, we got enough experience to kind of like talk about this in terms of, more or less just the nibs. So I have a few like basics to cover first that kind of, transcend all specific nib types, because it gets a little nuanced, but there's some general rules that you can kind of follow to get you to some wetter writing nibs if you're looking for those. We don't really have like a filter on our site for wet writing, though it is, if you look at any of the product reviews that we have, how dry or wet a pen is, there's a little slider bar so you can see how people have rated those pens, but all the nib sizes are lumped together. So people maybe, it's kind of like the pen overall. Anyway, so general rules here. So as a whole, broader nibs tend to write wetter than finer nibs, right? Kind of makes sense.
Yep.
You need more ink for a broader line. So, it's not just that the line is wider. Usually you're getting a darker line with more ink down on the page with a broader nib.
Something like a 1.1 will produce a line width very similar to a broad nib.
Yes.
But the ink flow is completely different.
Yes.
The ink flow on a 1.1 is going to be way less significant compared to a broad nib. So like Brian said, it's not just the stroke width. It is the density of the ink output.
But if you have a fine or an extra fine nib, it's only making so much contact with the paper. Yeah. So it's only going to put down but so much ink. So as a whole, if you want wetter writing nibs, go with broader nibs. Gold nibs are often wetter than steel nibs, all else being equal, because gold is a softer material. If you write with a little bit of pressure on it, it's going to spread those tines a bit, put down more ink. It's not a absolute firm guarantee rule, but I've found that, that can often be the case, especially if you're talking about European nibs. Japanese nibs might be a different situation, but European nibs, I do find that most of the gold nibs tend to be a little wetter writing than most of their steel nibs. So European nibs are often wetter than Japanese nibs. I think. There are different variations in terms of the grind and what they call them. I think it's pretty generally known. We've talked about it a lot, how like the extra fines and fines are definitely ground actually finer. So it is putting down a finer line than, with Japanese pens and what you would see with most European, because most Japanese brands have a medium fine that they put in there. So, most medium nibs are pretty universal all around, European versus Japanese. But when you get to the fine, medium, or the fine, extra fine, the Japanese run a little thinner. But I think just in general, European nibs tend to write a little wetter than the Japanese ones. So not a hard, fast rule, but that's the case. Flex nibs definitely write the wettest as a whole, because if you have a flex nib, it needs to be able to produce enough ink to be able to have those tines spread out and not railroad and break up on you. So even when it's not in its flexed position, you will often have just more ink coming out writing with a flex nib. So if you want a really wet writing nib, but don't feel comfortable flexing or whatever, you can still get a flex nib and it'll still write pretty wet. So that is something you keep in mind. And then Drew kind of mentioned this, stubs, they definitely can be wet, but it's not always wetter than a broad nib of the same pen. It's kind of throws you a little bit.
They just kind of smooth out the ink a little bit. It's almost like
distributes
writing with
it
a
out.
squeegee.
Yeah, spreads it out.
Yeah.
So the line ends up being thicker, but it's not necessarily more ink on the page.
Yeah.
So let's get to some specific nibs, shall we? So I think the wettest nibs you'll find will be flex nibs. So I find the wettest nib of anything I've pretty much ever used is the Noodler's Triple Tail. It's that 3-tined nib. That thing is an absolute gushing monster.
I forgot about that pen.
It's a beast.
It really is.
So, and then a Ponset, I believe, has that same nib on it as well. So, it's a flexible music nib, basically. It's kind of like stub-like. So, and it's an ebonite feed that is just made to just dump ink onto the page. So really all the Noodler's pens will be pretty gushy because they're all ebonite. They all have pretty wide open feeds, so that it can take whatever ink you want to put in it. But that 3-tined one especially will dump it. The Magna Carta M6, the M600, the Flex nib, Magna Flex, as Drew likes to call it unofficially. That one is pretty wet as well. The Pilot nibs, the FA and the Falcon nib, they're a little less wet. I think the Pilot FA nib is a little wetter than the Falcon nib. The Falcon nib you're getting on the Falcon pen. I think that one you're getting a little bit more kind of like a stub, where it's not necessarily dumping out a lot more ink. It's just kind of maybe spreading it a little further. But the Pilot FA, I think does actually put a decent amount of ink down. And then there's Omniflex nibs. Those come on Conklin and Monteverde pens. That one is, even if you're not writing with it as a flex, it'll put down a fair amount of ink too. And then there's a Yovo flex nibs. Like we have the Goulet steel flex nibs. They're a little bit wetter, but they're not going to be as gushy as, some of these other flex ones that we have. But I thought it was at least worth a mention. It might be a little wetter than your typical.
I was just looking at the Nippon set versus the Triple Tail.
Okay.
They both have 3 tines, but the shape of the nib is different.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that means that the Triple Tail is more wet or not.
Oh, interesting.
But the Nippon set definitely has more of a flare on the shoulders, and the Noodler's is written in a different way. So I don't know which one is more wet. I want to say that
compared them side by side.
I haven't written with.
They're both wet.
I haven't written with the Nippon set in many years, but I remember when I first inked up that Triple Tail, it was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So I want to say that maybe the Triple Tail is more wet, but my memory is not nearly fresh enough to actually say that.
They're both going to gush pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of Nippon sets available, and the Triple Tail thing is just in clear. Maybe it's pretty limited. So
that's all we carry.
Yeah. Either way, they're both going to be gushing monsters.
Definitely.
Stub nibs, I put the Pilot Parallel, because these ones can be pretty wet. Especially if you get to the really
they have to produce a lot of flow to cover the ground.
Yes. Those can be pretty wet. I didn't specifically mention any other stubs. Maybe I meant to. I have an empty bullet point on here. So
stubs that are gold stubs that are tipped
are usually
produce,
a little wetter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pelicans had some that have been pretty wet, but Pelican nibs in general, that actually gets to my next point. But Well, I'll just move on to my next point because I don't have any other stubs that come to mind, but we'll mention it if I think of it. So pens that are not flicks or stubs, the Pelican, Souvron, the really any of them, all the nibs are like different sizes between the 4, 6, 8, and 1,000. So yeah, they all, well, actually no, is the 4 and the 6, I think the 4 and the 6 uses the same size nib, but the pen body is different size. I think
so too.
I think that's how it works. But anyway, all of those Pelican gold nibs, they write pretty darn wet across the board. Like that's some of the wettest extra fine nib you'll ever use is a Pelican gold nib. The Lamy 14 karat, not the Lamy 2000 is fairly broad, but just the regular 14 carats, like you can get on some of the studios and some of the other pens, those write fairly wet, especially on the mediums and broads. I find them to be super smooth, super wet. Visconti, some of their nibs, like in the broads, a little bit of the mediums, those can kind of be a little bit wet too. But really, like most gold nibs in the broads, stubs, a lot of mediums, those can be pretty wet as well. I find that to be somewhat universal. So that's what I have.
Yeah. I don't have as much experience with this because I don't seek out gushers.
Yeah, this is like,
I tend to fall on the other side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say that to echo Brian, the Pelicans always seem to be super wet with me, and the Lamy 2000 in medium and broad, or is always a super wet experience. So
yeah, definitely.
If you're looking for that, I think if you go with a German broad, you're gonna get
wetness.
Yeah.
So definitely, if there's any others that come to mind that you all have used, let us know in the comments, because I didn't cover everything, but just wanted to at least give a pretty solid list. All right, Drew, you ready for this next one?
Yeah, we got a little bit of a twofer here.
Okay. This is from Sahil. Says, this question is for Drew, but I'd love to know Brian's answer as well. You just want it all, don't you? So what was the main trigger point that got you amazed about fountain pens? How about that?
You can read the next one too.
Oh, okay. Amber Unfinished says, I'm new to the channel, so I'm sure you've answered this before, but how did you get into fountain pens? Did you want this to be a 3-hour pencast? Because I don't know how to tell this story short. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, okay. it's so we have covered this, so I don't, we don't need to get too into it because I think a lot of people have heard this, but it gets asked often enough that I don't want to just overlook it because people are curious. So, yeah. I feel like your thing kind of has to come before mine because
I can give a brief overview.
Yeah.
Anyone new? Pencast. I'm
surprise. It started with him. When I come in, I'll mention my thing. But
yes, I'll give you the 50-cent version of this here. So I was a woodworker, turning pens out of wood, engraving them, selling them to companies that were giving them as gifts for their clients. It was very personal, very craftsmanship kind of aspect. I had never used a fountain pen in my life, so I didn't even know that was a thing. Economic downturn happened with the financial crisis of 2008, 2009, and all my corporate business dried up completely. So I was looking around being like, who the heck is buying pens in the middle of a recession? And discovered that there's a whole enthusiast community of fountain pen people. And I was like, well, this seems interesting. I wonder what this is all about. And for me, it was a combination to get kind of, Seal, to your question, what drew me into fountain pens? It was really a twofer. Part of it was because I didn't know anything about fountain pens necessarily. So what initially drew me in was the community around it, was that there was so many enthusiasts that were really into these things. And I was like, well, there's got to be something here.
There's magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't know if you've ever worked in the corporate gift industry. Not a lot of like passionate enthusiasm around corporate gifts. It's more of a let's get this line item, as cheap as possible and cross this off our list. So it was novel to me to discover a community of people around a given set of products. And then that was the initial kind of introduction. And then as I learned more about fountain pens, I was like, oh, these things are cool as heck. And I get why people are really enthusiastic about them. So it was really like all kind of happening at the same time for me, but it was initially like, oh, wow, people are really into this. I got to figure out what this is all about. And then as I got into it, I was like, oh, these pens are so cool. So for me, it was like, kind of the draw of the writing experience, smooth, the ink, the personalization, that kind of thing. But then The technical aspect of the pens still, even the materials, the nibs, the grinds, all that stuff. I just still nerd on that today. So yeah, that's what got me into it.
Yeah, and
Almost 15 years ago or so.
As he mentioned, around the economic downturn of 2008, that was around the time I got a job at a foreclosure firm, helping banks take people's houses away. So
isn't that fun? What a fulfilling job.
I got laid off of my previous job along with like 40 other people. So I just needed to find the first thing that came along, and this was it. Stayed there longer than I wanted to, almost 2 years. And by the time I saw Brian post something on Facebook about needing some help in his garage selling pens, because I had, reconnected with him when he was woodworking, and I bought some groomsmen's gifts, 2 rollerball handmade pens for my brothers for my wedding in 2008. I was like, okay, I guess he's selling different stuff now. Please let me help you. Please.
You're like,
please. I
think you literally said, like, if you can pay me this much, then it doesn't matter what I have to do. I will leave my current job.
Yes.
And it's kind of worked out.
So I had not written with fountain pens previous to that. I had used one time, kinda, when my mom had some, I don't even know what brand it was, calligraphy set, with like the different tips. And I remember asking her, can I try that? She's like, I don't know. It never really worked. It was up on top of a shelf, and I got it down and tried to make it work, and I couldn't. So I was like, this is silly. Why do people use these? So it wasn't until I got my job at the Goulet Pen Company in Brian's garage that he was like, well, you should have a fountain pen, pick out something, kind of in, an affordable price range. So I chose a ocean blue Lamy All-Star with a 1.1 nib. And as soon as I got it, and I've mentioned this in passing, as soon as I got it, I immediately was wowed, because he let me pick out an ink, he let me pick out a nib and a color of pen. And I just immediately thought, the job that I just left, where there was just an ocean of cubicles under fluorescent lighting, where the guy that ran the place would berate anyone who left the coffee pot on too long. Someone got fired every Friday. Like, if I just had like my own pen rather than the same blue or black, I think it was Pilots and from the supply closet. If I just had my own thing, it would have been so much more tolerable. I wouldn't have felt like just a pawn, a cog in the machine. I would have felt like an individual. I would have felt like I had a little nugget of myself, a little personal injection of my soul and spirit into this mundane garbage that I was having to produce every day. And not like it would have made me want to stay there, but it would have definitely kind of curtailed the misery a little bit.
Lessen the pain.
Yeah. And I held that thing, I wrote with it, and I was like, where has this been? It was an immediate thing. It really was.
It was that way for me too. The first time I actually inked up and used a fountain pen, I was like, oh, this is what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
Because I was like trying to use like gel roller balls and stuff. And I thought that was like kind of the pinnacle.
Yeah.
Because like even when I was making pens, I'd buy like kit pens that come with like all the metal parts and stuff. I would turn the barrels out of wood or whatever material. I would press it all together, but they would always come with these like, crappy ballpoint refills that wrote terribly. I would replace all of them with either like a Parker gel refill or like a, Cross or a Mont Blanc refill, something like that, is more of a liquid ink. And I always thought like, oh, this is like the best writing experience you can get. So then as soon as I wrote with a fountain pen, I was like, oh, why didn't anybody tell me about this? This is the best experience you can get.
Yeah.
And then it was just like no looking back for me.
And I'll also say, I've never actually kind of reached this conclusion until just now. I'm going to give a little bit of credit to Noodler's Ink because when I was first just learning about stuff, one of the things that I had the most fun learning about were all the stories that inspired those colors. Like, because so many of them are history based and reverse engineered from who knows what. Like, I was like, what the heck? There's this guy doing, like, why? And I can still ask that, but
a lot of people asking,
but it was indicative of the passion. And then the more I kind of dove deep, I found out that everybody does this just for the love of it.
Pretty much.
Not only Nathan from Noodlers, but no one does this. And we've talked about this before. It's like, this is not the industry for, making your millions.
There's no unicorn startups that are coming from the fountain pen industry.
No, you do this because you love it. You do it for the passion. And that extends, you see that passion on display from the individual writer to the retailers that sell them that pen, to the distributors who sell them that pen, and to the manufacturers who make that pen. Like, it's all the way across. And I've never been as plugged into an industry as I am the fountain pen industry, but I would find it hard to believe that there's a lot of industries like this where the passion is the number one driving force from point A to point Z. Like, it's something like going back to what you saw when you first kind of approached the community. It's this magic, and you just want to be a part of it. And holding your instrument that you picked, the style, the nib, the color, all that, like, it's your little flag saying, hey, I'm a part of this amazing little community and this very positive, passion-driven subset of hobby culture that I am using to inject a little bit of me into something as kind of it's writing isn't as much as a necessity as it has been, but it is still a pretty mundane utility, but you're injecting so much of yourself into it now. You're now pouring your choices, your passion, your color choices, everything that you love into your writing. And there's something transcendent about that. And I find that just like if you're a filmmaker who wrote the movie and maybe you're directing it or starring in it, you're putting more of yourself into it, and it shows. You might not be able to put your finger on it, but there's a added connection there. And I feel like the same thing exists in writing. When you're using a pen that feels like yours, what you write, you might not be able to put your finger on how that pen is influencing your actual words, but I bet you it is. I don't know. I just feel like it is. When I write with a fountain pen, you just feel it. Again, you can't identify it, but it's there. At least I think it is. I don't know.
So for you then, I guess it was more like the actual pen itself. I mean, you obviously, like, the way you got the job was very unique.
Yeah.
Most people don't know somebody who's starting up an online fountain pen company.
No.
But for you, was it actually like writing with the pen and experiencing it? Because you weren't really plugged into the community.
No.
When you first started.
No, it was not the community. I later, just found out that there were a bunch of people that felt the same way I did.
Sure.
But no, it was holding that pen. It was like pulling Excalibur from the rock. It was like, this is my key to something special. And
cool.
and that has been proven.
That's awesome.
It really was.
I think a lot of people have that experience.
Yeah. It was something very cool. So anyway, hopefully that's the short version of it.
Nice.
Miraculously, I think I talked longer than you did.
I am capable.
That's got to be a record.
My mouth shut every now and then.
Wow.
But that said, this next one's a long one, so I'll make up for it.
I noticed. I did not think that this was going to be the thing you were going to deep dive on.
I wouldn't have thought either. Well, there's a lot of notes in here. I'm not necessarily going to say everything. And it's like the way that the notes are drafted. He has like the question as like an image on one side. It's sort of in a table. So when I have notes that are like sub bullets, it's just really skinny. It's like a newspaper article. So it's like, it looks like a lot, but it's not actually that much.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Question number 3 comes to us from Svet357. And the seemingly innocuous question that I chose for this is what to do if your pen gets tossed in the washer and dryer. And apparently Brian has a lot to say on the matter.
Well, I have personal experience with this.
Which is why I chose it for you,
With one pen. I mean,
Yes.
one pen. So I have a sample size of one. So I put my Kaweco Lilliput Fire Blue through the wash and dry cycle unintentionally. It's such a little pen that it just, didn't even notice that it was still in my pocket. So this is part of why I do like to carry. So I do still like that pen, but I carry the little Traveler's pen, and it clips onto my pocket. So it's a little easier to see if I've, kind of left it in there. But it is also fairly small. I'm kind of surprised I haven't put this thing through the wash yet either. But anyway, so that was a metal pen though. So didn't get as much potential damage to it, I guess, as it could have. So I will say, as I was thinking about this, it's like once it's gone through the cycles of the washer and dryer, there's not really a lot to do at that point because it's basically already been done. So
pray to the pen gods.
Yeah, I would say, you need to look over your pen, kind of assess it, look over your clothes, because if you had some ink in there that could be problematic, you might have stained some of your clothes. And it might have stained probably not the washing machine, but the dryer. I think the dryer is more the problem. But basically look out for stains and look out for damage, because all of that is possible. So the washing machine likely won't hurt the pen very much, because think about it. Most fountain pens are made to get wet. Like, they use ink is wet. And if a pen's made of metal or some kind of plastic, it's going to be fine to get washed. If the pen doesn't seal as well and ink could get out of it, that could be a thing. But, it's in water, so it's like any tumbling and stuff like that that's happening, it's probably not getting knocked around too hard. So I would say if you end up putting a pen through the wash and you catch it before you put it into the dryer, you're probably going to be okay and not have to worry about it too much. Maybe if it was like a really, really hot water cycle, like if you were, washing like all white clothes or something like that, and you were trying to bleach them. Oh, I guess if you had bleach in there, that would be an issue. Regular soap probably would not be a problem. But if you had bleach, that could be a problem, depending on the type of pen. Though it's pretty diluted, though. I don't know. I don't think it would be that.
Yeah, you're talking gallons and gallons of water.
Yeah, and it's not in there for that long.
Yeah.
I mean, just the wash cycle is maybe 20, 30 minutes, and then it's got a rinse cycle and all that kind of stuff. So it's really not exposed that long.
I've used diluted bleach in cleaning before.
Yeah, I think it would be an issue if you had like a wood pen or something like that, or if you had, maybe ebonite. I'm not sure, but honestly, it'd probably be fine for that short of time. So, I think that more of the issue would be it might stain some of your clothes, depending on the ink that's in there. If the cap doesn't seal super well, or if the pen comes like uncapped or something like that in the wash cycle, it could be an issue. The dryer, though, that's what's going to mess up your pens. So this is what sent me a little bit on the deep dive, because I was like, kind of curious, is like, how hot do dryers actually get? And what materials could hold up to that heat better than others? So I don't have like super firm answers, and obviously it depends on so many different factors. But dryers typically run at 120 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's like 49 to 71 Celsius. The biggest issues for the pen running through the dry cycle will be deformation because of the heat. Mechanical damage from tumbling around inside of there. If you've ever left literally anything in your pockets, or you have like something with a zipper on it or whatever, you can hear the thing clanking around in there, and it's tumbling around there for a solid hour or whatever. So mechanical damage, brittleness and cracking. So that can be because of the heat, especially on things like ebonite. The high heat can cause some brittleness to happen, or maybe the loss of material color. So this is what happened with my Lilliput. So the fire blue is a fairly vibrant blue color. Once I ran it through the wash and dry cycle, it like subdued the color by at least half. So it still has the fire blue look, but it just looks a lot more muted than a brand new pen coming out of the thing. And that is specifically happened after I ran it through that cycle. So I don't know whether it was the wash itself or whether it was the heat from the dryer that did that. Maybe it was a combination of the two. But now I can't use my Lilliput in any videos now except as a cautionary tale, because it doesn't accurately represent a proper pen. I had no other issues though, to the credit for the Lilliput. No inking issues. Ink didn't even leak out of the cartridge. That's a cartridge only pen. So, it was definitely inked and everything, but didn't even have like ink in the cap. So that thing stayed pretty locked tight, but there's no clip on it. It's metal pen. It locks up pretty tight. So if there's a pen to send through the wash, a Lilliput's a pretty good one to do, because there's not a lot to go wrong. So what else we got here? For what it's worth, I really don't hear about this happening very often. I can't honestly recall any specific incident from a customer that has sent something through the washer dryer and had like a big thing.
I have. Well, have it be a big thing? No.
And have it be like an issue?
No, I don't think so. I've definitely heard of like some Safaris going through the wash and being fine.
Yeah, I've never heard of like, a notable outcome from this happening.
No, and honestly, like, when it has happened, I don't recall the clothes inside being
like damaged or stained or anything.
No, I really don't. Because when, like, even if you put an article of clothing that has had ink on it in the wash, it might come out. Like, it's not a foregone conclusion that it's just completely ruined. Some of them, especially depending on the ink, So if the pen is already in the wash with gallons of warm water and the ink gets pulled out of the pen, and you're talking comparatively a small amount of ink that
Very small
is
amount.
immediately diluted.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's gonna
You
be.
probably wouldn't even notice.
Yeah, it might be fine. I've never heard of one completely ruining a whole load of clothes. I don't think the ink is potent enough to do that.
Maybe if you had like an eyedroppered pen with like 3 mils
Of
like
Bay State.
dark red ink or Bay State
Yeah.
or something like that with a pure white load of laundry.
Yeah,
Maybe you would
Sure.
see it then, but I've never heard of an instance of anybody that's like ruined clothing from having washed a pen with their clothes.
Mm-mm. No, and we've heard enough.
We've heard all kinds of stories
Yeah,
of everything.
I've heard some weird stuff.
But if you guys know of anything, please let us know in the comments because I'm genuinely curious.
I've seen more
how many of you
images.
like sent it through the wash.
Yeah, we've seen more images of pets being stained by ink
Oh,
than
all the time.
a load of clothes being stained by
Yeah,
ink.
pets getting to packages before
Yeah.
the stuff is put
That's
away.
way more common.
Getting into ink samples and stuff like that.
Or just someone accidentally spilling it on their animal. Like,
that also happens. We've
yeah.
seen some where
No
like,
judgment, y'all. Like,
we've seen some where like the dog gets a hold of the pen or whatever, and it looks like a crime scene.
yeah.
Because the ink is like splattered all over the walls and
Yeah,
stuff.
if you happen to have a dog or a cat and a washing machine and a dryer, I would be more don't worry about the
Don't worry
washer and
about
dryer.
the That's right. I'll also say that like if any damage happens with the pen, I don't think this is covered under warranty with any manufacturer. This is definitely like a year loss kind of a thing. So anyway, don't hear this happening a lot. Definitely curious in the comments how many of you have had this happen or know somebody that's happened to, because we're genuinely curious. So because of the temperature that the dryer is in, I think it's going to depend a lot on the material of the pen as to how well it's going to hold up to that dryer. So like my Kaweco, it was fine. Color got a little subdued, but honestly, if it had been like just a regular Lilliput, it would have been perfectly fine. Not an issue at all. So it really does depend on the material. Metal is obviously going to hold up the best. So pens like the Lamy, that's ABS plastic, which acrylonitrile butadiene styrene. That's what that stands for. I think I said that right. So the melting point on that's pretty high. It's basically like the boiling point of water is the melting point of ABS. But it can soften and deform at the drier temperatures, especially in that higher temperature range, which can cause the pens to warp. So that might be an issue if you run that thing in like your towel cycle or something like that. But again, I've never heard of it actually damaging anybody's pens. If you have a pen made of PMMA, so this is a lot of like precious resin pens that you see out there, their melting point is higher. So they're a little less likely to get damaged from a dry cycle, though it with prolonged exposure, it could still happen. It kind of depends on the material and how in the situation. Polycarbonate, which is like the Lamy 2000, that is similar to PMMA. It's got a pretty high melting point, so you're probably less likely to have issues with the heat that you would have from a dryer. Ebonite doesn't really have a clear melting point. You can literally like put it in boiling water and almost light it on fire to heat it up so that you can form it to whatever the nib is. That's heat setting. That's what that is. But it can definitely deform. So I think that's more the issue that you would run into with ebonite. Probably, I don't know if you were running like a heats like a hot the washing machine, if you're washing in hot water, if that hot water would be enough to essentially kind of like heat up and soften up the rubber, and if that would cause an issue. I think it would. I genuinely don't know.
Maybe like ebonite only does so much when it's just hot without like
being pushed.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Okay.
So I had but if anything, it might heat set itself.
Yeah, it might actually improve. I don't know if I wouldn't say that.
I don't think the water would be hot enough.
It's probably not gonna be hot, especially it's like if it's inside the cap and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I that would be a stretch.
Yeah,
but I think
if it's sealed, only so much water is going to get to the feed, and that water won't be because it needs to be right off the boil to do anything meaningful.
And it's not anywhere close to that.
No.
I think most hot water heaters, you're probably set around 120 degrees. As the heat. So it's going to be much more an issue in the dryer than it will be in the washing machine. But again, I don't think it's the feed necessarily. Not all pens have ebonite feeds. Most don't actually. But in a lot of pens that don't have ebonite feeds, they're usually ABS plastic is what those feeds usually are. So, it's definitely potentially could warp. But it's more of an issue like an ebonite pen body or, that I think could be an issue.
Yeah, because then you're thinking like it could
definitely deform, especially if it's getting heated up and tossed around.
Yeah.
And the thing is like banging and clanging. But I don't know. Again, I've never heard of anybody actually doing that and having an issue. Hey, maybe we should do that. Maybe we should throw some pens in the dryer.
That's not a bad
and
idea.
See what happens. That would be kind of fun. I don't want to do it in my dryer though, because I don't want to hurt my dryer.
But they're so easy to get to now that they're on risers.
This is true.
Hey.
It's right there. I don't even have to bend over. And then the other material I put in there was cellulose butyrate. That's Noodler's pens.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's some other ones that are like cellulosic, kind of, close enough to that.
Those would be great. Instead of a freshener, scented, you can just throw a bunch of Noodler's pens in there.
Can you imagine?
Imagine the fragrance.
Drying your clothes
nice
with
hot
Noodler's pens.
Noodler's smell.
Oh, if all your clothes just had imbued with a Noodler's smell.
I just want to make a fake commercial of like, some mom getting a load of laundry out and just kind of like, smiling big while the kids run around and play with the dog, and she's just like having fun because she knows
smelling that
her laundry just
butyrate.
smells. Oh yeah.
Oh, it's lovely.
Like some Betty Draper, mom.
Oh,
and then a little bottle with like eau de noodlers.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Wow. So yeah, that could be a thing. But the cellulose butyrate melting point is a little higher than AB. Excuse me. Oh, okay. A little bit down the wrong pipe. All right. A little bit higher melting point than ABS, a little bit lower than PMMA. So cellulose butyrate, it's going to be in the middle there somewhere. I definitely think it could potentially have some warping issues if it were to be in the dryer though. But I don't know. Those pens they're pretty resilient. Like part of the benefit of cellulose butyrate is they're very impact resistant. But I think under heat, I could see them malforming.
They do.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that I have seen, it's a bit of a hack. I don't know its success rate, not amazing, but over time, the AHAB's filling unit, that threads on, that can get loose
like
over
stretch
time.
Out a little bit or whatever. Yeah.
And it can either get stretched out with heat or it can contract with heat too. And I've seen people try to like melt the top of it to kind of have it conform to the threads. And sometimes it works, but of course you're just melting plastic and hope it does what you want it to do. There's really no rhyme or reason.
You can do that with any plastic technically. Yeah. If you heat it up, it gets soft at a certain point.
Yeah. So
it's malleable.
I've seen that happen. So they are susceptible to it, but we're talking open flame. I don't know exactly how much that will. I don't know if a washer dryer will do it, but it's possible.
Open flame is definitely going to be hotter than than a dryer.
Yes, it will be.
Yeah. I don't know how hot is like a lighter, like a charcoal lighter or whatever. I don't know how hot those flames are.
How hot is fire? I don't know.
Fire can be different heats. Depends how much fire there is. Because if you're talking like, you're doing like blacksmithing, those suckers get like thousands of degrees. So the bigger the fire, the hotter it is. So I'm just talking like a little flame, like a candle flame. Mm-hmm. That's curious. When you're talking, I'm going to Google it.
Okay.
See if I can find out. Anyway, so those are just some of the, main materials. There's obviously other ones. If you have a wood pen, that's going to be very sus.
Those things are already struggling just to withstand nature and a standard room environment.
Yeah. So obviously any other type of material that's maybe not as naturally water resistant anyway wouldn't do great in a wash and dry cycle. But that's kind of the thing. So again, I don't think it's anything you should lose any sleep over. And if it does happen, you're kind of like, well, let's assess the damage and see where we're at. And then you can talk about it online, have a good story.
That's it.
But I will say nothing will be as bad as my sister-in-law. I don't know who was to blame specifically, but she had 2 young kids at the time. So they're still pretty young, but they were much younger. Had some crayons in their clothes, went through the wash and dry
I remember
cycle.
this.
That made a gigantic mess, ruined the clothes, and that crayon wax got all up inside
Didn't
that
you have to
dryer
clean
drum.
it?
Well, so they started to clean some of it, but I was going to go visit up there anyway, and I always look for projects to do because I can't just sit around and do nothing. So they were like, actually, yeah, we have this crayon wax that's inside our dryer and we can't really use our dryer right now because it's going to get wax all over all our clothes. So if you want to help scrub that out, go for it. And oh boy, howdy, was it a chore. I tried so many different things. No like cleaning chemical touched it. I ended up using magic erasers.
Yeah.
And I mean, it took me like probably 3 hours to scrub the inside of that drum to get rid of, and it didn't get rid of all of it. You could still sort of see it. So nothing will be as bad as sending crayons through there. So I don't think you need to lose any sleep over your pens being in your wash and dry cycle, but I don't know. We'd love to hear any cool stories if that does happen.
That sounds terrible.
Now you know more about dryers and melting points of different resins. So thought that was fun to share, and that's my deep dive. Unintentional.
There we go. Not too bad. Not too bad.
Awesome. All right. Andrew says, what are your favorite non-standard nibs, size or grinds? Non-standard.
So no extra fine, medium, broad, I guess.
That's what I would assume.
Yeah.
Maybe even like a 1.1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say if it's a standard like a Twisby or something like that, that's standard.
The first thing that comes into my mind is a double extra fine, like an EEF with good flow.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've written
is that
with
a thing?
Yeah, it's a bit of a
It can't exist.
it's a bit of a unicorn, but yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like I think that
it's like if the barometric pressure is right that day, and you have the right ink, and your pan pressure is not too great.
There's part of me that loves a double extra fine because when you do get a really good one, it's like the culmination of so many things going right, and you know that whoever made that nib, they are talented.
Yeah,
they are doing it right. And because I have had, I'll use the platinum double extra fine or the UEF in that instance. Platinum has the ultra extra fine. I'll use that as an example. I have a President nib with a UEF on it and I love it, but it is a little stingy. And in order to get that ultra extra fine line, those tines are a little on the tighter side and that line is super thin. I love it. And I've written with a lot that have super thin lines where I can write, a whole sentence within one little, grid square, but they're just really, really stingy and really weak with their colors. Like I'm like, this is not the color that I inked it up with.
Yeah, you need to like go more saturated or go with a really gushy ink to get it to
But if it gets too gushy, then it's no longer an ultra extra fine. So, but when you get that happy medium where it still retains enough saturation to show you the color that you're expecting to see, but is also very, very fine, it's magical. And I'll say that.
Have you used the pigmented inks in those UEF nibs? Because I would think that like
that's a good question.
The pigmented ink, I don't know if the pigment in the ink would impede the flow at all.
I don't know.
In such a fine nib, or if maybe it doesn't need as much ink down on the page to look dark because it's got the pigment. I don't know.
That might be. Yeah, I might try some carbon black in my President.
Because that's what they include, right? That's the cartridge they include.
That
with
is the cartridge.
Pens,
Yeah.
3776.
I should give that a shot. That's a good point.
I don't think I've ever tried a pigmented ink in a UEF nib.
I don't think I have, but I will say that in a stock nib that's not a UEF, the Pilot Vanishing Point extra fine is both extra fine and has a beautiful flow to it.
That's a really good.
I love that. So, in my opinion, if you just took that nib and stepped it down one notch to a double extra fine, I love that nib, and it's so close to being there. It really is. So a double extra fine with a good flow. That is my ultimate non-traditional.
That'd probably be a good candidate for like a nib customization.
Oh yeah, I've had a number of those done. Yeah, absolutely. And then it's not super common, but it's also not. It's widely available as well. The Pilot Parallel in a 2.4. I believe that's the orange one. But all the parallels are fun to write with, and you can go with the red one, which is a 1.5, but that's a little bit more standard. The
orange is a 2.4.
2.4. Yeah. Okay, cool. I get that confused with the 3.8, which I think is a green.
The 3.8 is a green.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So the 3.8 is a bit much, but I think the orange is just a step up above. It's like the second lowest one. There's the red and then the orange, and the 2.4. Like I love that. You can't really write with it in standard lines. It is a little bit too big for that, but it's also not like overwhelmingly large.
Not like the 6.0.
Yo, gosh, no. That is unruly.
Yeah.
So I really do love the 2.4 parallel. I think it's a lot of fun. I can still write normally for all intents and purposes. You don't have to be like, okay, this thing is so big, I need to either write in big block letter print, or I need to learn Gothic, or I need to learn some other form of, calligraphic script. No, with the 2.4, you can still write relatively normal, just larger. So I love that one. And then I will say that my favorite modification is just anything that adds extra flex. I love that. Now, if the feed can put up with it, a lot of times it can't. But if I can get a little bit more bounce and the feed can tolerate that, and I can still get enough ink down on the page with a little bit of added flex, it makes me so happy to have a nice, easy flex. It doesn't need to, I'm not really looking for line variation. I just love the feeling of the nib giving and bending while I write. I think that's such an enjoyable tactile experience. And a little bit of line variation. I really don't need a lot. And I've really contemplated, Brian, getting my E95S shaved down a little bit so it's just a little bit more bouncy. But I don't want to ruin it because it's so nice. And I really have no complaints. But I'm like, could it be just a little bit more bendy? Maybe. I don't know. Also, that nib doesn't come out, so I don't know if that would be an easy one to have ground either. So
I mean, Nibmeisters can work on them on pens.
And that's another thing. So I think that also I find that an added flex modification is really extra exciting to me because it's really hard to do. It's not like they just need to work on the tipping material, like, hey, step this down a size or carve off this side so it makes a different shape. You know, when you add flex, you need to take off material from the whole nib, not just the tipping material. A lot of nib modifications are done with just the tip, just the tipping material, the alloy that's right there at the top. But with flex, you need to do the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's much more involved, and not everybody does it either. So in my head, I'm like, if somebody can do it, it's extra special. So a lot of what I like has to do with the work involved, especially when you're talking about double extra fines and flexes. So it's half and half. Half I like to write with these, and then half I'm holding something that is a more of an artistic achievement, or a engineering feat of some sort.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, first off, I have a follow-up about the temperature of a candle flame.
Oh, please do tell.
I said I would look that up. 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit.
Really?
1,000 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
It's pretty hot.
That is a lot.
But, I mean, when you're heat setting up feed, I really don't recommend doing it with the flame. Some people do it.
Oh, God, no.
But that's why you're doing it for like seconds at a time.
It's not worth it.
It's not worth it.
One little bubble could, seal one of, you could, in the wrong place, you could completely close up your ink channel.
Oh, yeah.
Bubble in the wrong place.
1,800 degrees versus what, like maybe 200 max that you're going to do in hot water. So, yeah, it's definitely better to use water. Anyway, just thought that was interesting. So I looked that up. My favorite non-standard nibs are more in like the stub family. I like Mark Bacchus's CSI grind with like a medium or a fine. A fine is cool. If I liked writing with finer nibs, then I would like the fine more. Because it does look really cool to get like a pretty thin nib with some line variation, some crispiness to it. It looks pretty tight, but I tend to write a little bit bigger and have a heavier hand. So it's not quite as enjoyable for me as like the medium CSI grind.
Yeah.
So a CSI is basically, I mean, there's other nib grinders that do some variation of it, but it's basically like a little bit crisper than your average stub, but not quite as crisp as a full-on italic nib. So you get a little more crisp line variation than you get with most stubs, because most stubs are pretty rounded. That's a custom grind that we've done on a few different pens. Mark Bacchus has done them on some Viscontis. But I do like those.
And I believe we still have those available if anybody's curious.
I think we've been stocking them regularly for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a cool thing. Because of its capacity, we can't offer it on all that many pens, but we do like those ones. And then I like the Architect grind too. It really I think it looks the best when you write in print.
Yeah.
Which I don't do so much. So it's a little more of a novelty nib for me. But other people that I know that write more in like block print, it just looks awesome with an Architect nib.
Yeah.
So an Architect is essentially, it's like an opposite of a stub nib. So it's ground kind of like a blade. And there's variations of this too. I think Mark Bacchus has one that's sort of, not a straight grind, but it's kind of a scoopy.
Yeah.
It's kind of a swoopy looking thing.
Usually when you do that, it's referred to as some sort of blade. People have, kind of used the naginata term here and there loosely.
Sure.
It's all derived from that sort of style.
Yeah. But the main idea is that you get a really thin downstroke and a really thick cross stroke. So to me, it kind of ends up looking like almost like a comic book,
Yeah.
lettering like you get.
Yeah, an architect definitely looks like that.
Looks kinda like
Naganatas
that.
are a little bit
Naganatas
different.
are different.
And they're more variable too.
Yeah. But I mean, I've written with architects doing like longhand, actual script. It doesn't really look that different, or doesn't look nearly as good as it does with block print. So, so that one's kind of interesting. And then we have the Pilot Signature, which I'll show you guys today. I'm kind of digging that nib.
Yeah?
Yeah, I am. I'll cover that more in the spotlight, but it's kind of like a little bit less than a stub, in between a broad and a stub, basically. Slightly stubified broad. So, I mean, that was kind of interesting. So, I have other nibs that are like a lot crazier and stuff like that, and they're works of art. They're interesting, but to say they're my favorite, like they could be my favorite for different reasons. But in terms of like what I'm actually writing with and using, is definitely going to be more in the stub family.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very cool. All right. Ready for the last one?
I think so.
Crimson Sonata asks us, what's the most absurd material you'd want to see a pen made from? Practical or no? Absurd, Brian.
Absurd.
It could be practical. It could be not practical.
I have a hard time going like full absurdity, but I do have an interesting stories to talk about.
Okay.
Back from my pen making days.
Do tell.
I was, experimenting not just with wood pens, but with all kinds of other materials too.
Mm-hmm.
When you're an independent pen maker, it's part of the benefit you have is you don't have like a highly productionized process. So you can work one-offs and do very interesting materials, pretty easily.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very, very common. There's a forum out there called the International Association of Pen Turners, penturners.org. If you go look there, it's all hobbyists basically that are making pens out of stuff. Some of the people in there get into some pretty interesting things. So back in my day, I was doing like resin castings. I would do what's called like worthless wood castings, where you'd have like wood with a bunch of holes in it, or like a piece of rotted wood or something, something like that would otherwise be unusable. And then you cast resin into the voids. So you end up with like this blended wood and resin mix, which looks amazing. Mm-hmm. But of course, everyone is wildly different. And there's a lot of steps to make that happen, including like a vacuum chamber and a pressured pot.
Because you need to get that resin impregnated into the wood through pressure.
Yes.
It doesn't just like go into all the nooks and crannies by itself.
Work its way easily in there.
Yeah.
Especially like by the time you turn it into something as thin, because on a pen, it's like you would have a metal barrel basically, like a brass barrel. That's usually how those work. And then whatever the material is, that's on the outside, but it's pretty thin, like maybe a millimeter at most of thickness is what that material would end up being on top of that brass barrel. So if you don't have a super, super good bond between the resin and the wood or whatever material you're working with, you would have major problems. Probably just blow apart into 1,000 pieces on the lathe.
Have you ever had anything explode on the lathe?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, I wear a face shield when I turn because I've had stuff blow up in my face before. Yeah.
Just sitting there holding your little...
Mm-hmm. Oh, and it happens in like before you even know it, like before you can even tell what's going on, the thing just like vanishes. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
What do you do? Just like, no, well, next up.
Yep, pretty much. You're just like, crap. Now I got to start over.
You go inside, and be like, honey, another piece of wood exploded.
I mean, you're talking about a pen barrel, so it's like really, really tiny. But I mean, when you get like into bigger things on a lathe,
that can still like get some splinters in your arms and stuff. Right?
Oh, you can mess yourself up. You can like send yourself to the hospital.
Jeez.
Like wood turning, if you get into the bigger stuff, it can get very dangerous.
Like table legs and things like that.
Table legs, or like people make like vases and lazy Susans and stuff like that. When you get to the bigger lathes.
Oh,
like I've got a lathe that's got a capacity. It's 16-inch to the bed, so you can turn like 30-inch things on it. So you can basically put like a whole log on there and turn it if you really want to.
Oh, I've seen those.
Yeah.
The log could explode.
Yes.
Oh.
Or not even explode. I mean, definitely like pieces of wood can like break off and go flinging all over the place. But yeah, it gets pretty dangerous. And what gets really crazy too is when you're turning something like that, not so much with pens because they're so small, but when you turn like, bigger hunks of wood And a lot of times too, when you're turning a piece of wood like that, you turn it green, so it's still wet. So because it's easier to turn that way, but all the water in the wood makes it heavier. So if you don't have the thing properly balanced, or you're still kind of turning it or whatever, it can like shake the lathe and can like walk it across the floor. It's pretty wild if it's not balanced properly. So yeah, wood turning is more dangerous than you would think if you don't know what you're doing. But anyway, so I've done enough to be dangerous. But anyway, with pen stuff, so I got into like resin casting and stuff like that. And you think about like, once you know how to cast resin, you get the whole vacuum and pressure thing down. You're immediately, what you start doing is going like, well, what else can I put in resin, right? So that's immediately where most, people who get into the making their own resins and stuff like that, they will just start going like, I wonder if I could cast, pencil shavings into resin. I wonder if I could cast steel wool into resin. I did that once.
You did dollar bills too.
I did shredded dollar bills.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Sawdust. Yeah, you name it. Anything. Sponges. Whatever you think, and that's what a lot of this forum ends up being, is people, especially once you've been on there for a long time, you're kind of like, all right, how many walnut pens can I really look at? Show me something interesting. So people get into all kinds of crazy stuff. So some of the stuff that I made pens out of, I did the shredded dollars, circuit boards. So those are really cool. You get like actual pieces of like circuit board, you heat them up to kind of bend them around a barrel. You can then cast that into resin. Oh. And so you end up with a real circuit board, that it's all smooth because you put resin over top of it. Huh. So I made a couple of circuit board pens back in my day. Deer antler, you can do all kinds of like natural materials like that. Deer antler smells some kind of bad when you're turning it. So I didn't make very many of those. But then some of the more interesting experimental ones that I saw back in my day, from what I can remember, fish scales. So people taking like fish scale, like fish skin, and like snake skin and other various things like that.
I saw that at a pen show last year.
100%.
They had a fish skin, and it was very soft.
Yeah.
Fish skin and
well, you can have those. Yeah, you can have like that.
This wasn't scales. This was just the skin.
Yeah. So I saw people that did like the fish scales and then cast resin over top of it.
Oh, okay.
So it kind of you get kind of like an abalone type of effect.
Okay. I see.
But I mean, obviously fish have some crazy cool like patterns that they can get to them.
Yeah.
So, that gets kind of interesting. And then a lot of snake skin, a lot of people had those. Really any kind of animal parts that you want, you can make out of pens. Some of the more interesting ones, pet ashes.
Yeah.
Somebody wanted to commemorate their beloved animal and put their ashes. It didn't look amazing.
Yeah.
But, it's like, I don't know, you get to carry it around with you. That one was kind of weird to me. I was like, okay. Somebody was curious if they could cast a cat turd into resin and make a pen out of it. So sure enough, they did. Like literally just a big old cat turd.
Wow.
They did it. Yep. I think they like dehydrated it first or something like that. And I was like, boy, that is interesting.
Won't it just dehydrate it on itself? Like, can you just put it outside?
Yeah, I would think so, right?
Oh, man.
I don't know. Maybe they need to make sure it was like really, really dry.
Oh, goodness.
Food dehydrators are good for that.
For cat poop?
Well, just in general, for drying out like things you need to turn.
I'm just like, I'm picturing just a food dehydrator in Target and, on the back, like, what do people say about this? And Brian Goulet, great for cat turds. With a thumbs up. Yep. Little speech bubble coming out.
There you go. Coprolite. I don't know if you know what that material is.
Copper what?
Coprolite.
Oh.
Fossilized dinosaur poop.
Oh.
So that's a thing.
More poop. All right.
Poopy very, very old poop.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's kind of cool. It's like kind of historical. So I've seen pens made of all that stuff.
All sorts of poop.
Not fountain pen specifically, but you could make it a fountain pen, definitely. So those are some of the things I actually seen. So now getting into like the stuff that I would want to see.
There we go.
That I've never seen before. I didn't have anything too crazy. I went with something that's like actually possible.
Okay.
Damascus steel.
Oh.
Like you have it's basically like folded steel. You see it a lot in knives and stuff like that. I don't know exactly how you would make a pen out of that, but I'm sure it's possible.
Yeah.
That would be really cool. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. I'm sure it would be very expensive. Getting back to my callback of what I said earlier, talking about the ancient wood. Literally just watched a I think it was a Business Insider YouTube video about petrified wood that comes out of Indonesia. So they go and they dig up basically fossilized wood, like trees that have, I mean, these are trees are like millions of years old. And they have to be in just the right conditions where, the humidity and all that kind of stuff is right, so they didn't decay. But what happens is they end up getting essentially kind of impregnated with all of the like minerals and stuff. So they dig these things out of, caves basically. And you end up with this really, really old looking wood. It's got the wood grain and everything to it, but it's like 3 times heavier than regular wood because it's essentially impregnated with stone at that point. So I think a petrified wood pens would be pretty cool, and that would be very doable.
Yeah. There's some people that make Damascus pens.
Damascus.
It's like titanium Damascus, I think.
Oh, okay.
I know Ben Walsh has tried this. This is just some Reddit user. I'm not sure, but
okay. Yeah.
I think it's a thing.
That's cool. Yeah. Okay. So maybe it's more of a thing than I realized.
I don't know about Damascus. I don't know what the difference is, but
I mean, Damascus steel is definitely a thing. You see it a lot in knives.
There are definitely some crazy alloys out there, and that I think that kind of start in the knife world and then gonna get brought into fountain pens. And these, more adventurous makers are giving them.
The Damascus thing is not a new thing. This is like comes out of Japan.
I think that's very feasible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That would be cool. Meteorite. I think it'd be really cool.
That would be expensive.
It would be expensive, but I mean, there's definitely like pieces of meteorite that have either fallen to Earth or are in the Earth already from having fallen here years ago. It'd be pretty cool to have a pen made out of real meteorite, wouldn't it?
It would be.
Lapis lazuli. So it's like a stone, that's very doable. In fact, I think Visconti did that with the Il Magnifico.
Yep.
I kind of wish I'd gotten one, but those pens are so expensive. I can't just like
Il Magnifico or Medici.
I think it was Il Magnifico because that's the one they make all the stone.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I think you could do like a lab-grown crystal, like a quartz or a sapphire or something like that. That would be kind of cool.
Probably.
I don't know how durable it would end up being, but if it's lab-grown, then you wouldn't have like imperfections and stuff to worry about. There's no way you could make it out of like actual ones. It would be ungodly expensive. But,
sure.
I'm sure there's a way.
Absolutely.
Like a TWSBI.
It's a lab.
Diamond.
You can do anything in the lab.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be kind of cool to have a pen made out of amber.
Oh, yeah.
Like real amber, like Jurassic Park mosquito amber. That'd be kind of cool. That would probably be pretty brittle, though. I don't know how well it would hold up in
some of these. I'm like, I feel like some of them have been done. Some of these are sounding really familiar.
It could be.
Yeah.
I didn't like thoroughly research these to see if it had ever been done, but I mean, none of these I've seen done with any of the like mainstream companies.
Oh God, no.
Yeah. Like, and then the weirder one that I had was aerogel.
What's that?
Aerogel is basically this like material that weighs practically nothing. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know it well enough to explain it, but it's like very, very heat resistant. And it's, it's kind of like a clear, like cloudy kind of color. But it would be very interesting to see because it would be,
I have seen that. I saw a video with Adam Savage, and he held some.
Yeah,
and it like
you like can't.
Yeah, he was freaking out.
Can't feel it.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen videos of other people that have like covered their body in aerogel and go into a swimming pool and stuff like that.
There you go.
Is there amber? Oh, look at that.
With insect inclusions.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know if it's a fountain pen though. No, it's just rollerball. But yeah, you can stick some. Stick some amber back there. Look, you got your own skeeters in there.
That's literally what I was talking about.
Yeah, man.
The Jurassic Park thing.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a fountain pen made out of amber. It'd be kind of cool. That's what I got.
I thought kind of along the same lines as you about the lapis lazuli. I am a big fan of the labradorite rock mineral situation. Cool. I love those. So I really would love it if Visconti was able to do that. Looking at it, it's got a lot of lines in it, so I don't know if it's strong enough to withstand turning it into shapes, but they make jewelry out of it, so I don't see why they couldn't make the center band of a Il Magnifico out of it. We talked a while ago about glass pens. I still think it could work. Right? A bunch of people mentioned that they make glass pipes. So if those glass pipes have brass fittings, then you could thread them. It would just be.
I don't think there's not glass fountain pens because it's not possible. I think it's because they
Why?
would not be durable at all.
Well, if they're dense enough, you know, if the walls are thick enough, then yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
they make glass pipes out of them. It's like,
Or you could do like some form of tempered glass.
Yeah, just
that
don't
would
drop
be
'em.
stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, if you did like a tempered glass, then that would be fine.
Yeah,
Like, that
why
would be
not?
durable. Yeah,
go glass pen.
it's possible.
I know concrete pens are a thing, but I wish they were more of a thing. I think concrete's cool.
Yeah, I've seen that more in like the everyday carry
Yeah.
kind of crowd. You know?
Bring some more concretes in. Canvas, micarta. They've done a lot of
Oh yeah,
cool micarta pens.
Yeah.
I want to see canvas.
Interesting.
Like I think of like honestly like shoes, like Chuck Taylor's. Like it's a really familiar canvas. Like I want a pen that feels like that. Now
Okay.
it doesn't need to be. I only want to kind of feel it because I know that cloth is going to wear down over time. It needs to be a little resiny.
Well, micarta's linen. I mean, that's
but like it's impregnated with the resin. So
right.
So I would need
Well,
to.
if you did the same thing with canvas.
Yeah, but I
would
want to
think
feel
that-
a little bit of it though. So I just
Yeah, I mean,
kind of like
yeah.
Magna Carta's denim stuff.
Yeah,
It's like you can still feel the cloth.
I think that's what would end up happening with
Yeah,
canvas.
I want that,
It
but
would be
obviously
like
not the grip
denim.
section, because it would stain.
It would.
Jadeite is like a old school sort of porcelain thing. It's kind of like it's kind of like ceramic, but this really cool jade color. It would be extremely fragile, but it's a really neat.
Jadeite.
It's not the actual mineral. It's like jadeite. It's like they made like mugs and dishes out of it in like the mid-century sort of situation.
Okay.
So you'd want to Google like jadeite mug or cup or bowl or something like that. But I think it actually is like a
Jadeite dishes.
yeah, so all that stuff. So
Oh, yeah.
it's this really unique.
Cool looking.
Yeah, so something
I
like
mean, it looks
that.
like jade.
Yeah. So I think that'd be cool. Going with the mid-century thing, if you grew up in the 80s or thereabouts or 70s, your mom or grandmother probably had an orange Tupperware container for like flour, sugar, or coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and it was slightly textured.
Mm-hmm.
I want a pen that just feels like that. I
Oh.
want an orange with maybe like a little starburst pattern on the side.
Yeah.
That feels that slightly textured. I want an orange, Tupperware, 60s, 70s. I don't know where it was from, but
Yeah.
it's
Like
it's
late 60s.
it's
early
eternal.
70s.
It's
Yeah.
eternal. It is forever. I want a pen that feels like that.
All right.
And then something like with an empty container in it. So either like a rim or an end piece, something that can be removed, filled with sand, soil, or something, and then resealed with an O-ring, something really, solid. So if you go on vacation and you want to bring back a little bit of, sand from this beach in Hawaii, or I don't know, anything from anywhere, but you would have your favorite place with you, with your pen at all times. They do
cool.
that with like bracelets. I've seen there are these capsules in a bracelet.
Oh, like
that-
a charm.
yeah.
Sort of thing. Oh, yeah. Makes sense.
But it's like this little glass vial in the center of a bracelet that you can fill with sand or something and kind of always have it with you. So why not do a fountain pen like that?
That's cool.
Yeah. And then finally, I want a fountain pen that you can unscrew, and there would be a thin barrel that you could put a sleeve over, right?
Okay.
Like the Lamy accent used to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
But instead of that, where that sleeve would go over, the only thing you'd be able to put there would be a piece of penne pasta. So you'd take the pen apart, you'd throw on the sleeve of penne, screw it back on, and you got a pasta pen. And it's not going to be durable, but if it breaks, you put another piece of penne on there.
Wow.
So you always have a pasta pen.
The pen pen.
Penne pen, pasta pen.
Wow.
It's there for you. Yeah, it's nothing wrong with that.
I'm just trying to think of like if it didn't break, like what your hand oils would do to that pasta.
It would need to be replaced
in a
from time to time.
relatively short time.
Yeah, it's
It would get like soft and sticky.
but you will have a whole box of pasta.
That's true. It's
you can
very
freshen,
replaceable.
You can freshen that thing up as much as you want. You can
You
even put a
could.
piece of cooked pasta on there if you really want
Oh,
things
boy.
to
I
get
don't know
slimy
how that would
and
work.
satisfying.
Ugh. We use like Rachel's. She's not like gluten-free medically, but gluten kind of messes with her. So we tend to do gluten-free pasta when we can. And some of that pasta just gets so sticky and kind of gross.
Mealy.
Like, I'm not a big fan of brown rice pasta.
Yeah,
Chickpea pasta is
it has
probably
a
the best.
it has a different consistency.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. We definitely had some brown rice pasta we've cooked before where it's just all ended up as like one lump. It's really gross.
Oh, no, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank
Anyway.
you. So those are my answers.
Cool. Okay.
Practical or no?
I feel like we stayed pretty practical with these.
All things
I
considered.
think all of these are possible.
Yeah.
Maybe not commercially viable, but doable. We can like make up stuff. So maybe we weren't creative enough. I don't know. You let us know if you have any ideas for, more interesting pen materials than what we came up with.
Or you can say, Drew, there's already a pasta pen, bro. And send me the link.
I think we're pretty.
I'm gonna buy it.
I think we're pretty safe on that one.
Safe? You mean deprived?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that could bring me back into the game, Drew. Get me making pens again.
It's the fountain penne.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Drew, for as much as you dog on my dad jokes, that was full dad right there. Unapologetic.
Now, I will say I respect the heck out of dad jokes when they come naturally and they're witty. What I cannot tolerate is the
forced nature of it.
Hey, what do you call a blah 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 blah? Like that's set up. They have to be natural in the moment.
All right. I'm tracking.
Which you've done some good ones.
I'll get him in there any way I can.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, that's the questions we got for this week. You can ask us questions in the comments, or you can email us at pencast@gouletpens.com, and we might look at those. All right, let's move on to the pen spotlight. This week,
I will say, just to warn anybody, we are pretty far behind on our pencast@gouletpens.com emails. We've had some outages, and we're not managing that box as we normally do.
Yeah.
So if you please keep writing in there, we will get to them.
Yeah.
But if you've written in there in the past month and we haven't said anything,
don't be discouraged.
Yeah, we'll get.
I'm trying to set the expectation that you're not going to get a timely response out of that email,
but we will see it eventually.
Yes, most likely.
Yeah.
Okay.
We should check that soon.
Let's do the pen spotlight. Yeah, I know, right? Pen spotlight. We got the Pilot Custom 823 with a signature nib, and we'll show you the clear one because that's new too. So I just want that in there too. So let's do it. Got a couple of custom 823s here. Looks like I'm missing one though, the smoke one, because that's in the box.
Heyo.
Anyway, this is the classic amber that we all know and love, and we got the new one, the clear.
Look at that.
Pretty cool, huh?
Looks nice. So we've got a black inner cap on that thing?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the one thing about it that I'm not as crazy about.
Yeah, it seems like it's only half clear.
Because you can see
the whole thing
distinctly. Yeah. And it's that way on the amber, and it's that way on the smoke. You just can't really tell.
Yeah, I never really noticed.
So, yep. That's a thing.
Okay.
I wish it were different, but it's not.
I hadn't seen that in person just yet.
Yep, that's the thing. This is actually the one that I've had for years in my collection that I got out of Japan.
Oh, right.
And they're identical to the ones that we're getting now. So they haven't changed anything about them. They're just now available in the US. So I just wanted to show those for comparison, especially because the clear one is new. So you have that as an option. This is the way the packaging comes on the 823. So just thought I would show you all since we're taking it out of the box. So it normally comes in a plastic sleeve, but I've already inked this pen up because it's my personal one. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So comes with a bottle of Pilot Blue ink, which you cannot get this bottle on its own. You can only get it with the 823 or the custom 743, which also comes in this similar packaging. But it is Namiki Blue ink. So if you want the refill of this ink, you can get that. But this bottle, you can only get it.
It's a cool looking bottle.
It is a cool looking bottle.
It does have one of those little cups in it.
It's got a plastic insert. Yeah. Yep. So it's like, this is amazing. I wish we could just sell this, but we can't. Oh, here's my sleeve. Yep, just chilling on the side. Anyway, it'll come in the sleeve. Here's the smoke, which we've had already.
Yeah, nothing new there.
Well,
something new on the inside.
But in my own collection, I already had these two. So I was like, well, I want to get that signature nib, and I might as well get it in the color that I don't already have.
Now you've got the trifecta.
They're all three. So here you go, tax man. This is my justification for writing off all three pens. Promotional use. Okay, so that's all I'm going to show of those other two. This is the smoke, and I want to show you the signature nib because that is really the reason why we're talking about this at all. So I'm not sure how detailed you can get on there, but
I can see an S.
Yep. there's an S on there. Not an SU. That would be a stub. And that is
Oh.
not available on the Custom 823. But the signature is the next best thing. So normally they just have fine, medium, and broad. That's it. Signature is new, and it's available on the smoke, the clear, and the amber. So it's same price as all the other nib options. So my opinion, if you are inclined to look at a broad nib, you should look at the signature nib because I actually kind of like it a little better. Though, I mean, the broad nibs are fine. But anyway, so this Pilot's number 15 nib. So it's about equivalent to a number 6 size from a Yobo. This is what's on the 743 and the 823. And I've inked it up with the Pilot Blue ink that it comes with. Now, one thing on the ink that I do want to point out for anyone who's really, really a pen nerd. Do you notice any difference between these two bottles, Drew?
Nope.
Well, one has a black cap and one has a blue cap.
What?
They're both blue ink. I noticed this when I took this one out of the box because I've been looking at this bottle for a decade plus. And I was like, just something looks different. And then once I pulled this other one off the shelf, I was like, well, that's a different cap.
There you go.
I think it's like a rolling change because I pulled some off the shelf. All the new stuff that we have has a black cap, but I pulled back some other ones, and it's a mix. So I'm guessing they're transitioning over to a black cap from a blue cap. Everything else is the same ink and everything as far as I know. But anyway, thought I would point that out because it's a thing. Just don't be confused that it's not black ink.
Okay.
So I inked it up. And I wanted to show you all what the signature nib
Let's
looks
take a
like.
look.
Indeed. So, when I looked at this thing under a loop, basically it looks kind of like a stub. It's got a really kind of flatter writing pad than your typical thing. So, like if you look at the way that it's ground, it's got a little flatter surface here, kind of held, mostly at a lower angle. So it's still a pretty round nib, but it's slightly leaning towards stub.
Okay.
So you get some line variation, but I've noticed that if you hold it down low, so it's like low angle, it gets really wet.
Wow.
So in that way, it's a little kind of like the Naginata Togi where, it'll do that, but it's not really as gradual. Low angle like that because of the way that it's ground, you don't really get much line variation.
I'm noticing that.
It's just a big fat gushing line.
So do some like thin strokes low and then some thin strokes kind of high.
So if I just do straight down strokes, with the low angle, and this is pretty low. I'm like altering the way I hold this thing because of how low I have to hold it. So it gets like that, and then on the cross strokes, they're not that different.
No, I'm not seeing a lot of difference at all.
Right, and that's fine. But if I hold it at a higher angle, and I'm going to kind of go more to the extreme here, and then I go down, it's actually still pretty smooth here. Normally when you have a pen and you hold it at a pretty steep angle, it starts to feel kind of scratchy and stingy. But this actually holds up quite well.
Yeah, it looks good.
But then on the cross stroke here, it gets a lot thinner, right?
Very.
So if you
difference.
want to get more of an extreme, and I found this with like the FA nib, I found this with a lot of Pilot's nibs. I think it's just because of the way that they tend to write in Japan. They, it's just more conducive to holding the pen at a slightly higher angle.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah. In general, Japanese nibs
Yeah.
tend to change more based on
So
angle.
if we go, high, and this is like not the way I normally write. So it's a little
you're
weird
almost
for me.
writing at 90 degrees right now.
It's pretty close, yeah, but it's still really smooth. So high angle, and then I'm going to go lower than I would normally go, but just to show the extreme, low angle.
That's really interesting. Yeah, very, very wet.
Very
now.
different, right? So I don't know, it's kind of interesting. So where I'm inclined to hold it is kind of somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
So I'll go like mid angle. Now I might be a little lower angle than your average person, maybe.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing a lot of variation there. Like it still
not a ton.
seems.
I mean, again, it's going to do it more if you hold the pen a little higher up. But there is some variation. It's probably more like broad on the downstroke and like medium on the cross.
But even when you wrote at a high angle, like I'm not seeing any variation. It just seems like a thinner line.
Yeah, it's subtle, and maybe that has to do with the way that I'm holding it or something
Very
like
subtle.
that.
And also we have to take into account that we're writing English.
Yes.
And I think that if you had it at a higher angle, and you were writing Japanese characters, you're going to see more of that variation.
Yeah.
Because you're working more with like straight lines.
I definitely think when you hold it at a higher angle, you see a bit more variation. The lower the angle you go, the more it's just kind of
do a
like,
little bit in just to kind of like, obviously you're not gonna be writing anything Japanese, but just to simulate that, could write in print just a little bit.
Okay.
So we can see if
like a block print.
Yeah. Just so we can see if sorry if I'm in your way.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't normally write in block print, so let me think about how I do that. So
just write in all caps.
Okay. I have to think about this.
Write beef nuggets.
How do I do a Jew? Okay.
Beef nuggets. There we go. Yeah, see, we're seeing like those. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Those aren't bad beef nuggets, but you can definitely tell that you don't do this very often.
I don't. I have to think about these letters because I really only write in cursive these days. Or, I'm not doing capital letters a lot, versus like beef nuggets.
See that? Yeah. So he's doing cursive beef nuggets now, and the beef nuggets are just flowing.
Yes.
But
these are the
print beef nuggets.
These are fancier nuggets. These are like Angus.
All right. Well, these are
Angus nuggets.
You need to diversify your nuggets.
I'm not very experienced with the.
But yeah, you can definitely see that in print, those E's and the F's, like you can tell that you're seeing more of an extreme there. But still not a lot. It's definitely a very, very subtle variation. So if you're don't like,
it's
get
not a
this,
stub. It's not a stub.
Yeah, don't get this and expect line variation. If you want line variation, this is not your objective.
I think this is a good alternative to a broad nib, because I do find the broad nibs, for whatever reason, I've had an issue with them squeaking on a lot of pilot nibs. Not always the case, but it does happen sometimes. And they tend to be pretty wet, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me, the fact that it writes so much wetter when you write it low versus when you write it high. Yeah, I don't know if there's a particular advantage to that one way or the other. But I
would say that if it's not going to like deliver line variation, although it will deliver less consistency.
You get a little bit.
There's a little bit. So if you think that the broad nib is just a little bit too consistent, like if everything just looks really uniform and you just want to break that uniformity a little bit, I think this does. I think it breaks uniformity, but I don't think it like delivers variation, even though I'm kind of saying the same thing.
I'm gonna see if I like turn the paper a little bit, because I know that's the way with like the architect nib, is that if you have to hold the pen at a certain angle. And I'm using unlined paper here, so I am no reference point.
I think your beef nuggets are getting even better, Brian. You just need to write this more often.
I think, if I turn it so that the nib is a little more like actually like perfectly perpendicular or whatever the heck, you get a little more dramatic of a thing.
Yeah.
But I believe that the reason they call this a signature nib is because it's meant to give you just a little bit more flourish if you are doing a signature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it just looks a little more interesting than a straight nib, So if I'm kind of signing it quick, the flow is really good. I can see some of that variation.
Yeah, I actually see more variation here when you went really fast.
Right, exactly. So it could be that, it has to do,
maybe we just haven't been using it for what it's intended for.
I don't know. That's what I'm kind of curious about, because we don't really get a lot of instruction as to like how to use this thing, but I don't know. It's since it's brand new, I wanted to get some experience with it, see, what other people thought of it. But again, because it's not any more expensive than a thing, it's not like you shouldn't go out and buy this because it's so unique, but it's like, if you're already looking at an 823 anyway, consider the signature nib, especially if you like a medium or a broad anyway. I think that this is a potential alternative for you here. I don't know what our else to say. You like to write waffle something, right?
Sign do a fake signature. Come up with the nom de plume.
Okay, let's see here. We're gonna go with
Thorple.
Yep, Thorple.
McDonkey.
There
you go.
So when I write bigger,
let's see this.
It looks maybe that's just it. Maybe I'm just writing too small.
Yeah.
If you write big, like you're writing a signature, like you're signing a document.
Yeah.
It looks a little more interesting. To me, it kind of looks like if you have an oblique nib.
Yeah.
Then you get just a little bit of variation.
I think if Thorple McDonkey wrote that with just a broad, it would look less interesting.
I think so.
So
Yeah, this makes me want to meet Thorple because
he looks like an interesting person.
That's right.
But if you saw that with a broad nib, you'd be like, I don't want to meet Thorple.
Yeah, you'd be like, this guy just doesn't have any interest.
I don't want to meet Thorple, and I don't want any
Nothing
beef nuggets. But now I'm like, I want them both.
There you go. So that is the signature nib. So I'm curious what y'all think of it. I'll try to learn more about it. Yeah. I'm definitely no expert when it comes to it, but looking at it under a loop, I can definitely see the grind is definitely different than a broad nib. So it's got some character to it. Maybe it's like depending on the certain angle or how you write with it, maybe you'll see that variation a little bit more, but I don't know. I think I'm going to keep it on my desk and keep it for signatures.
There we go.
I'll just keep it inked up. And I mean, it's a great thing about that pen because you got that beautiful, completely opaque cap insert. It does stay sealed up really well for a long time. That's one of the pens that I tend to keep inked for a very long time because it's got a huge ink capacity and a nice cap seal on it. So
ink capacity in the form of evaporation buffer.
That's how I always judge my ink capacity.
Yes.
It's not how much ink can it hold, it's how long can it go before it's dry and unusable. And this one's a good one.
There we go.
It lasts a long time. So anyway, that's what we got. Let's do what's happening.
Ooh. Well, let me tell you what's happening.
Tell me.
I already told you what's happening because I've been getting scam calls today. And it's just really annoying. This is the second time it's happened. It must be on some stupid list, but like I'll get a call and they'll say, "Oh, we have legal documents for you because somebody's suing you, but we're not going to say who we are, who they are, but we're also going to call your mom and your mother-in-law and your wife and your brother and your dad and say the same thing to everybody else from different area codes." And I was telling you, like, they'll call these family members in the area code they are in, so it looks legit. And it looks like it's local. So I had to proactively reach out to my grandmother, my mom, be like, "Y'all, I'm sorry. This thing's happening again."
Come on, people.
And it's like, it's convincing because, they just bombard you with all this information about yourself. They know your date, they know your address, all this stuff. But then the urgency, of course, they're all like, this needs to happen today or else these legal decisions are going to be made without your consent.
What are they trying to get from you? What are they asking for?
I didn't even get that far. I'm like, first they asked for Andrew, which I'm like, red flag. That's not my name,
right?
Legally. So like, all right, well, already you're telling me that you don't even know my freaking name. So it's just annoying, and I hate that so many people dedicate so much time to just lying and swindling in that regard.
Especially bothering all your family members and stuff.
I know.
That's very unsettling.
I'm like, ugh. So
anyway,
anyway,
I tell all your family members like, "Sorry guys, I'm not
in legal jeopardy."
Legal
So
Jeez.
anyway, dealing with that today.
I'm sorry.
Speaking of my grandmother, though, the last 2 times we've tried to make plans with my Mimi, something fell through. She had a little bit of a health scare because we were going to get together because nobody had birthdays in May. Usually we always go over there for birthdays. Right. So we're like, you know what? Let's celebrate Arbor Day. It's like, let's go over there for Arbor Day spaghetti. And
nice.
we're going to make a thing. But she had an issue, so we couldn't go there. And then my brother's wife had a birthday event there, and we weren't able to make that either. So we felt bad because we haven't seen Mimi in so long. So we just went over there and took her to barbecue. We went over to Q, and she loved that. It was nice seeing her. I can't remember the last time we just randomly took her to a restaurant. And it reminds me that I need to do more of that for sure. So that was delightful. Just a random weekday thing. And she's just such a pleasant lady. She's one of the nicest people in the world. And I model a lot of how I try to behave after her. She told me once when I was younger that, she tries to make everybody's life just a tiny, 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 tiny bit better for having known her. Even if it seems like it's just a positive interaction, like that can make someone's life a tiny, tiny bit better. Like never underestimate the impact you can have on someone's day. And I just like that stuck with me. That was like one of the earliest like bits of wisdom I retained, even like as a teenager, when you don't want to listen to anybody, like that stuck with me. And I've always kept that in mind. So I love my Mimi. Movies. I got to watch a couple movies this weekend. Had a couple good lazy days. I watched the second Sherlock Holmes movie with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman. I don't know if you ever saw any of those. They're Guy Ritchie movies. He did Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
I've heard of all these things, but
Yeah.
never seen any of them.
They're solid. Like, you
Yeah.
know, I hadn't seen
I've
them.
heard Snatch is good.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're very fast paced.
Okay.
But when I first learned that he was going to do a Sherlock movie, I'm like, really? And Robert Downey Jr., who's not, you know, English, like, but they actually hold up really well.
Yeah.
Very, very well.
Okay.
So I watched the first one a while ago, revisited the second one, which I had only seen one time. And I happened to own them, so I, you know, had it available. Didn't have to search for it and what streaming service is this going to be.
Right.
And yeah, God, the second one's so much fun. The editing is great. The visuals are fun, and the acting's terrific. It definitely holds up really well. I hadn't seen it since I'd seen. No, sorry, I said Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman. What I meant to say was Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. I was thinking about the TV series.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
not the TV series. Golly, why did I'm picturing Robert Downey, but I'm saying Benedict Cumberbatch.
Okay. Gotcha.
That's the TV series.
Okay.
I watched the movie with
Gotcha.
Downey and Law.
Okay.
That was what I was talking about. That is very good. And then I watched Bumblebee with my son. So that's a Transformers movie.
Yeah.
And definitely the best Transformers movie out there.
Really?
Yeah, by far. Like granted, I haven't seen all of them because I saw the first one. I'm like, this is just a muddled mess of metal and CG.
Yeah.
Then they made Bumblebee, which isn't like super connected to any of them. It's just mainly about the one Bumblebee, the one that turns into a yellow, you know, Volkswagen.
Yep.
And he just befriends this girl. He can't talk because he got his vocal box ripped out. So she's just trying to kind of navigate adolescence in the 80s with this thing not ruining her life. So it's a really sweet movie, and the visuals actually look really good.
Huh.
John Cena's in there being a military man, but it's really enjoyable, and Archer of course loves it. So it's nice watching a movie with him because I just need to be reminded from time to time that he can still sit still for that long and kind of absorb that.
Sure.
So I always appreciate that opportunity.
That's cool.
We were supposed to get haircuts. We went to get a haircut, walked in, and Shannon realized that she had made the appointment for the following week.
Oh gosh.
So we are going to be shaggy for, another week. She always makes the appointments because she basically just says whenever she feels Archer needs a haircut, and I just tag along and get mine cut at the same time.
Go.
But yeah, so kind of missed out on that.
I'm going to need myself a little bit.
Yeah.
The place we normally get ours cut was closed for 2 days over Memorial Day weekend. So it was like, well, guess we're not. I was busy on Saturday, and then it was like Sunday morning. I was kind of like, I wonder if we could go today. And I was like, closed.
Yeah. And I was
guess
like,
we're waiting until next weekend.
What are you going to do? It's like, if I wanted to do it, I could have made an appointment. So, but she did it. So I'm like, all right, well,
yeah, that's fine.
No worries.
Your hair's not that bad.
No, his is worse. His is, and he refuses to do anything to it. That's the thing. It's like, he doesn't want it short, but he also doesn't do anything to it. So it's just flat on his forehead and just like straight line across. Like, dude, we're not. If you want to put some stuff in it and part it, then that's fine. You can have your hair however you want, because we just say that you can wear what you want. Yeah. I don't care if you just happen to wear a gray shirt with gray shorts. Like, it's not what I would pick. It's not what I would pick, but I don't care. You still dressed, okay?
Yeah.
You intentionally put on some clothes. That's all we care about.
Right.
With hair, it's the same way. Have it any style you want, as long as it's a thing.
Just do something.
Show
with it.
some form of intent. The whole like just walking into school with bedhead and no haircut. Like that's not that we got.
Well, until you look at the other kids and you're like, oh, that's most of the kids.
Well, at the end of the day, yes. At the end of the day, yes. Like every kid at the end of the day looks just like a hot mess,
like disheveled.
Yeah, no, I fully accept that, but Anyway, we'll try to do something. It's a futile effort, we know, but I just want him to have good grooming habits.
That battle's only going to get tougher.
I know.
Years.
I know.
It's going to be a thing.
I know.
So I don't know. Joseph is pretty good. Ellie is a little bit more. Her hair is very curly and stuff.
Why are they so afraid of showers? Like, you'd think it was poison.
Know.
Like, I don't understand it.
I don't understand it either, but I think I was that way in middle school.
I was too. But I don't know why.
I didn't want to be bothered with it.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't know why either.
Terrible.
Your brain's not formed yet.
No.
That's silly. The thing I keep going back to is they just don't. They don't have awareness.
Brain doesn't have enough wrinkles yet.
Yeah.
I told you last week I had started Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I was in a piratey mood. Yeah. I kind of fell out of that. I played it for a little while. I'm like, okay, cool. I do love this game, but I'm just like, I don't want to go the whole way.
Okay.
So I popped in Witcher 3 again, because I'd played that one multiple times as well, but I haven't played the PS5 version, and they did kind of like upscale it a bit. So if you have the PS4 version, you can pop that into your PS5, and You can download like the new version, which has some enhancements. What they did
Okay.
was they took a lot of the mods that the PC gaming community, modded it with, and they're like, okay, well, y'all did a great job. Let's go ahead and officially adapt those, come out with a remastered edition, and then move it over to console as well. So yeah, you got like better reflections on the water and better, sky looking effects, and more wind on the grass, stuff like. So it's just kind of like
Interesting.
little bonuses. Yeah, so I'm playing through that, and this I'm having a very different reaction to than Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed, I was like, oh yeah, this is familiar. This I'm like, oh, I'm excited to be back in this world. So
Nice.
I'm feeling this a little bit more.
That's cool.
So I'm gonna probably stick with this. We'll see. I'm more, if it's a new game I haven't played before, I'm pretty much like, I have to finish this before I stop it. If it's a game I've played multiple times, I'll allow myself to jump in and out. And then big news this morning, I was getting dressed, I was putting on my pants, and I put my foot into my pocket from the inside.
The pocket, like
like
at the top of your you were starting to put the pants.
Yeah, put my foot in there, and my foot went and made my pocket inside out.
Oh, interesting. And
I thought to myself, I just sat there, looked at my foot coming out of my pocket, and I was like, I've never done this before.
I don't think I've ever done that.
I found that to be interesting.
That is interesting.
And I was like, of all the years I've been putting pants on, I've never stuck my foot in my pocket.
40 years on this earth.
Yeah.
You've never done that.
And it just struck me, Brian.
Wow.
I was just sitting there, I'm like, this seems like something that would have happened earlier.
Yeah, right?
Like just, because you've put your leg in the wrong hole before,
Sure.
But,
all the time.
But the pocket, it's right there. I guess because normally the pockets are not inside out. You got that pocket.
Was the pocket already inside out?
It must have been a little inside out. Otherwise, my foot wouldn't have.
Yeah, because how would you have?
I don't know.
How would your foot would have just like slid off?
I don't know, but it still doesn't seem difficult enough that it has taken this long to have happen.
I don't know. I've never heard of that happening, but
so I don't know.
I'm not sure most people would talk about it if it did happen.
I wanted to share that with the community. Please empathize with me, even if you haven't.
That does explain why pocket foot is on the.
I was like, you know what?
Your notes are not that informative to be ahead of time.
I want to keep you guessing, Brian.
You definitely
How would you know? I don't want you ready to discuss pocket foot.
I have like novels in my notes. There's no mystery.
All right. Well, I hope that this, like, kind of when you see a vehicle and you're like, oh, I've never seen one of those before, and then you see it like several times throughout the week. I bet you this week you will put your foot in your pocket and you'll be like, well, dang. It happened. Drew willed it into existence.
What kind of are you wearing? You're wearing jeans.
Yeah, no. They're like kind of, they're just jeans.
I'm trying to think of how I would even do that.
I literally like this stuff was just like, boop, there was a foot in there.
Yeah.
There's a foot in that. My foot was in my pocket. Anyway, that's it for pocket foot. We can move on from that. I just thought that was interesting. And I was like, wow,
interesting.
That hasn't happened before.
You know what I do? Probably more on like one of the most regular things that I do when I'm trying to put on shorts or pants is I like lose my balance while I'm doing it.
Oh yeah.
Almost fall over. And I'm not a small person. So if ever
they hear that downstairs.
Oh yeah. Rachel always thinks I'm
Dad,
like,
you okay?
I'm like dying or something.
Yeah, just putting my pants on.
Like, I just forgot how to put my pants on.
Yeah. Fair enough.
You go left leg first or right leg first?
Oh, right leg first.
I'm trying to think. How do I do? I can't even think. How do I do it? That's right. I think I do right leg first.
Yeah, because that was the foot that went into the pocket.
Oh, okay.
I know.
There you go.
It's fresh in my brain.
Pocket foot.
Any other day, I probably wouldn't know, but because today was Pocket Foot Day, it's clear in my brain.
So we always remember May 28th now as Pocket Foot Day?
Yeah, we're going to celebrate. We're going to turn our right pocket inside out and put a foot in it. I don't know. Anyway, I upgraded my son's Nerf storage wall. I went and bought 2 new squares of pegboard and put those up because he continues to acquire Nerf guns, and I want to make sure he has a very appropriate armory.
So it's like a James Bond film now.
Oh yeah,
it's like there's a wall of guns all over it.
It looks super cool.
I mean, that's kind of cool.
I wish I had that. We also cleaned.
You do. It's just through your son.
Yes.
Because you're definitely not
vicarious.
You're definitely not buying it just for him.
No, because he would have them all over the floor. But it was a bit of an expedition to really tidy up his room and his playroom. And it was just, dude, we like he picks up, but he doesn't clean, and so all 3 of us got in there. Sunday was his playroom. Monday, Labor Day, Memorial Day, was his bedroom. And we threw away, or donated and threw away, so much crap. Like,
Yeah.
I think that probably maybe 3 garbage bags full of just stuff, and
So
then
funny.
another
We did the same thing
another
every weekend. It's so funny.
yeah, and then another 4 of like clothing donations and toy donations.
Mm-hmm.
And man, like, what was great was he acknowledged, like, I need to stop asking for so much like random crap. Like, we'll go to, like, if Shannon wants to go to Ulta and look at makeup, we usually go to Five Below and just kind of like walk around.
Oh, Five Below is
But I
like,
always get him something. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, $5. You want a little thing? We threw away so many of those. I'm like, this is just garbage going to a landfill. Like, and he acknowledged, he's like, I didn't need this. And I was like, you didn't. Like,
getting older, getting more mature.
yeah. And also, like, we also donated a bunch of books because he had this massive bookshelf of stuff he does not read, won't read.
Yeah.
And it made us sad because I'm like, I wish you liked some of these books, but I don't want him to look at his bookshelf and be like, never. I want him to look at his bookshelf and be like, everything there, I chose to have there. So I want that to be a welcoming sight for him. And same thing with his toys. Like, I don't want him to look at all of his toys and be like, I'm not even going in there. There's a bunch of, who knows? I want him to know what's in there, know where it's at, so he can actually play with some physical stuff and not be glued to the screen all the time. Because he still does like to play with toys, like Transformers and stuff like that. He can still jump into that.
Oh yeah.
You know what else? I didn't think this would happen, but I've been kind of on the edge about him spending his own money on microtransactions on like Fortnite and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, this isn't even real. But then after throwing away like dozens of pounds of plastic crap that's going to go into a landfill, I'm like, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, these microtransactions might be, you're going to end up spending more on this than you would a brand new $60 game, but it's not hurting the environment. So
not directly.
Yeah, like, oh man, I kind of it's got me second guessing that a little bit.
It's definitely a different thing now for our kids' generation.
Yeah,
the whole microtransaction thing.
Yeah,
and like streaming services and like all this kind of stuff. It's like it is definitely different than how we grew up.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Which I still have a hard time, with the microtransaction thing.
Well,
but for the things that matter to you,
yeah, and it's
worth it.
It doesn't fill up his room with crap that you step on and he forgets about. And
I just remember being around that age. I just literally didn't even see like dirt and clutter. It just like wasn't in my consciousness.
No,
like vacuuming the floor or anything like that.
I didn't see dirt.
Didn't even cross my mind as a concept of something that I should ever even consider doing.
Yeah.
Like my parents would do that kind of stuff and I'd be like, oh yeah, okay, they're doing that, whatever. That's what parents do. Would never associate looking at the floor and being like, wow, there's like hair and dirt and crap all over my floor. That's kind of gross.
No.
Never crossed my mind until I was like late middle school, probably.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, it's kind of gross. And I kind of smell. And maybe if I showered and washed my face, I wouldn't feel so oily and gross all the time.
Yeah. No.
Maybe there's this correlation there. Doesn't
cross the brain.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So wild.
Brains.
It is funny how we both ended up doing that this weekend.
Yeah. It was, he really did recognize like how helpful it was though. At the end of it,
that's good.
He's just standing in his closet like, I can just be in here.
What's great though is you're like involving him in the process and like doing it together.
Well, I have memories of my dad making things disappear when they were left on the floor too long.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to do that with him. I've never thrown away anything without his consent.
Okay.
If I have to ask a dozen times, I will ask a dozen times, but I don't make stuff disappear, even if he leaves it around. Like, cause that really upset me. I lost a lot of toys that I liked because and I didn't know it at the time until later. I realized, you know what, that thing just disappeared.
Yeah.
Like, where would I have lost it? I never took it anywhere. It just disappeared, and I don't fault a lot of parents who did that. Like, if you need to make some stuff disappear, that's fine. But for me,
if it's like a toy, like a useful toy that could be played with, what we end up with is like old scraps of paper.
Oh, no, like, I'm talking about actual
cut up pieces of cardboard that was like half of an art project that's now
I'm thinking about stuff that
their bed for a month.
My parents or parent, I don't know, like probably thought like, oh, he doesn't use this anymore. I haven't seen him playing with this anytime soon. It's just kind of like, this can go.
Yeah.
And I made it a decision just not to do that.
What helps with us, not only do we have the two kids, even if like, one of them could not want the toy, the other one might want it, but they have 4 younger cousins. So pretty much like anything we ever need to get rid of,
Yeah.
we have, and their cousins are not that far behind them, except on the clothing. My kids are gigantic. So, I mean, we have clothes that we've been saying, and my sister-in-law, her kids are on the total opposite end of the spectrum. They are tiny. So we have clothes, even though they're only like, maybe 4 years behind or whatever, it's going to be like a decade before they fit into the clothes that my kids are handing down.
Archer has a younger cousin too. We've got a pile of stuff we're going to bring to him.
Oh, at one point we had, I think, no less than a dozen, like 18-quart bins of clothes, because we had the 2 kids.
Wow.
And both of their sets and cousins are a boy and a girl.
Boy and a girl. Oh man.
So it's like, we got like, and it's also easier to get rid of stuff for our kids, because we can be like, well, your cousins are going to get to play with it. And it's like, when they go back to visit them, they can see it again. It makes it easier to like give it away, knowing it's going to go to somebody who, they love, and, they will still get to kind of play with it. So that does help, but they still have way too much stuff.
The only downside to telling that to my son is that he knows that his cousin is a little bit more indiscriminate when it comes to toy care and safety. So some things I'm like, hey, do you want to give this to your cousin? He's like, no.
He's like, only if I was going to throw it out anyway, kind of a thing. Oh, yeah.
So there were some things that he was fine with, but anything he has fond memories about, he's like, no. That can go in the attic. I'm like, all right, that's fine.
Okay, so how do you feel? Because this is like, I've been thinking about this a lot ever since that video project that I did for Rachel. I'm thinking about like posterity, saving stuff, also like memories from childhood, that kind of thing. Also recently had, somebody that I know whose, father-in-law passed away. They're having to go through a bunch of the stuff. And, we're getting to the age where I'm going to more funerals than weddings these days. And it's only going to become more of a thing, right? But I think about this kind of stuff, just like the baggage of the stuff, whether it's like digital stuff or physical stuff. So, it is something we're thinking about, especially
digital baggage is a new challenge.
Digital baggage is a thing. It's a whole thing. And I'm managing that in my life. But then also just like the physical stuff too. It's like, because you have kids, and kids just attract all kinds of stuff. And then our kids are like, getting older. Joseph's going to be in high school. Like they're finishing up their last week of school this week. And I'm like, dang, they are like really getting older. So like they have some stuff now that it's like, they're never going to read like Dr. Seuss books and stuff like that. We got
rid of all Dr. Seuss books this weekend. Yeah, I kept one that was given to me because my aunt gave me the places you'll go, like back in like 91.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's keep that one. Everything else can go.
Yeah. Right. So it's like, but you got to intentionally kind of do that stuff.
Well, and then there were books that like I had that I passed down to him, but if he didn't connect with them, then they're gone.
Right.
Like that's the whole thing. It's like, I know that they're important to me, but that didn't translate. Some of them did, most of them didn't, and that's that. They're gone now. They didn't make the cut, and that's the way it has to be. And do
you think fountain pens are going to be like that? Or are you just going to have all these pens, and Archer's going to be like, oh, that's Dad's weird thing?
Maybe.
God, the baggage I'm going to give to my kids with all my tools and pens and puzzles and all this stuff.
Yeah, I'm better at purging than you, for sure.
I'm not good at purging. I openly tell Rachel, I was like, look, the things that are like really important to me. I was like, some stuff, if I'm like just kind of waffling, and you can tell it's because I don't want to let it go. Because I don't have a great like mental memory, just like out of nowhere, like a verbal memory.
You need to have the thing.
But my memory is tactile.
Yes.
So for me, what I tell Rachel is like, if I'm throwing something out or getting rid of it, it's like I'm throwing away that memory.
Yeah, you need that talisman.
Is like emotionally, that's hard to do.
Understand.
So I really have to be like, this thing is dead to me, because I'll probably never think of it again, which is honestly fine. That's how we all operate.
Yeah,
but
I've done that thing.
It's a more conscious choice for me to do that than for most people. Like Rachel remembers everything.
Yeah.
She doesn't need physical reminders of stuff, and she's just not a hoarder like I am anyway. But definitely it's on my mind because my parents have downsized quite a bit, and Rachel's parents have gone through that too. And just the more people we know, like who've been executors of people's wills and all this type of stuff, and just have to deal with all that stuff ultimately, it's definitely got me thinking like, boy, I've got a real burden on my hands here for my kids or for Rachel when this happens. Granted, it's like, we're just middle age here.
Well, just cut down to one shed. You'll be fine.
Oh my gosh, but that's so hard. It's so hard.
I know.
It's so hard.
But yeah, no, that's definitely something.
Yeah, and I just keep acquiring more pens and more stuff. But we're not quite at that point yet. Once the kids, I think, get to more like graduating sort of empty nests, I mean, for sure, I'm going to dump a ton of stuff on them when they get their like first place and all that. I'll be like, here you go. I got like Corel dishes that my parents gave me when they downsized. And I was like, well, I'll hang on to it for the kids when they go to college or whatever. So I got like stuff like that sitting in my attic.
Nah,
like
we don't have
the china that Rachel and I registered for when we got married 18 years ago. We don't use china.
No.
Are you kidding me?
And you still have it though?
We still have it.
Oh no, that's got to go.
It's not worth much because we bought like the cheapest china you could get. But it was still like, that was kind of what we got married in 2006.
Yeah.
So it was like when you still like put your engagement in a newspaper, like there was that kind of transitional time when it was like things were going digital. Yeah. But we still had like traditional kind of stuff that we were like, I guess we should register for China. We've used it, I think, twice because it's hand wash only. Yeah. Because it's got like gold foil or something on it. So I'm like, and then you restore it. So it's like, if we want to use that china, we have to wash it when we take it out of storage and then use the dishes. And then we got to wash it again and then just put it back in a box somewhere. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? We're not China people anyway. No, so I'm just like, I don't know. So stuff like that. Then I'm like, yeah, I gotta find a new use for this kind of stuff.
Yeah. But I'd purge that.
Yeah. Rachel's better at that. But anyway, what I was saying is like, I openly give Rachel permission to just let things disappear because if she asks me about it, I'm going to have a hard time.
Shannon's done that with me.
Getting rid of it. Yeah.
She's even said specific things like, hey, if this thing were to one day disappear,
we'll do that.
And I'm like, okay, that. Say no more.
Yeah,
I got you.
Exactly. Yeah. Or it's like if this pile of stuff over in the corner here. And I'm like, yeah, that's a pile in the corner because it's all stuff that I just haven't wanted to deal with.
I'll ask her, I was like, do you know what's in here? No. Do you want to? No.
I trust you. I trust you. If it's important, then you'll set aside.
Bye-bye.
Otherwise, let it go.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I mentioned this to you earlier. My dog, Hank, one of my 3 corgis, is in surgery today. I'll probably out. I'll probably have a message on my phone now. But Shannon's going to pick him up. He is getting eye surgery because he does not produce tears in his left eye. So we have had to do drops multiple times a day, every day since we've got him. We got him at 3. He's actually the father of the puppy that we bought from our breeder.
Right.
And it's fine. He's pretty okay with the drops, but he definitely shuts that eye so hard. And we literally have to pry it open to get drops in there.
Oh, poor guy.
And he's not disagreeable. He's the sweetest thing in the world, but we know it makes him uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And we followed the doctor's orders to try to restart the tear duct production, and nothing, after, over a year, nothing worked. So the only alternative is to do drops for the rest of his life, which, forcing his eye open multiple times a day to do that is just like, you run the risk of slipping and hurting the eye. And the only corrective option, though, is to have surgery where they reroute a salivary duct to his eye so that he would essentially be salivating out of his eye,
drooling out
of his eye.
Wow.
But it's natural, it's sterile, and automatic. So they recommended we go ahead and do that. They said he's a great candidate for it.
Wow.
He's healthy. He's young-ish. He just turned 4. So we're just doing that today. So we just want him to be comfortable, and we know that like he's always squinting. He rarely opens it up all the way, and we're like, and the doctor said if he's squinting, that means he's not comfortable. And we're like, that's not fair. Like, if we can do something about it, he's so worth it. He's the nicest boy. So we went ahead and pulled that trigger.
Wow,
it's not cheap, but we're trying to be the good pet owner. So hopefully that all went well. But I dropped him off this morning. It's at a animal eye doctor. So big high fences because they work on horses and all sorts of animals there. So they're just animal eyes, all sorts of animal eyes. So
wow, that's got to be so interesting to just have such a variety of animals that you got to
when I first went there, I'm like, why is this place so fancy with these massive gates and stuff? I'm like, oh, and that's a stable and that's a barn. I'm like, Ah,
Oh yeah, there's
okay.
bigger animals than corgis.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it almost looks just like a house, a big old,
Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. So hopefully that went well. I'm guessing he'll have a cone on his head earlier, for the rest of the day. But
Mm.
they say that recovery is super easy because we're just supposed to give him a lot of treats, so he salivates a lot
Oh,
to kind of get
well,
things
that'd be awesome.
rolling. He won't mind, so
Yeah.
we'll
Nice.
see. But I'll fill y'all in on that. But hopefully it went well. The doctor says he does these all the time and should be no big deal.
All right. That sounds insane to me, but
It does sound insane.
it sounds like something out of like a sci-fi thing.
It's crazy.
Wow.
But that's it for me.
Technology. Cool. I'll be pretty brief. Had 3-day weekend.
Yes.
Just chilled a lot. Played saxophone. Did stuff around the house. Played some snow runner. Just
Nice.
try to take it easy. We did some purging. So one thing I did do is I went. I mentioned the friend that's got the father-in-law who passed away. So he was a woodworker. So I went to try to help assess sort of what there was and what was of value because they're doing an estate auction and stuff like that. So, they'll mostly get that taken care of. But I had, I know a thing or two about tools and wood. So
I've heard that.
I was like, I can lend some help here. And also like some of the wood, it was like, I don't know how much wood is going to do it like at an estate auction,
Yeah.
because it's like, do people even know?
You need the right person.
What, yeah. So I was like, well, okay. I mean, I like wood. And if I can put it to use and, spread it around to my wood friends or whatever, then cool. That's what a woodworker who wasn't able to use all their wood, knowing that it would go to another woodworker.
That's what he would want.
Feels like exactly. I didn't know exactly how much wood it was.
And
it's a lot of wood. So I have a lot more wood now. It's nothing too crazy. It's mostly oak, a little bit of pine, a little bit of red cedar. So, not like crazy wood, but it's a pretty decent amount of it. I end up filling a 10-foot trailer pretty much to the brim, and then some in my pickup truck bed as well.
were these like logs or
no, just
planks?
boards.
Boards. Okay.
Yeah, maybe like 8 inches wide, some of them 10 inches wide.
Okay.
Inch thick maybe. Most
Well, that's
of them.
good that they were already
they're
kind
all,
of like
workable. The kind of
formed.
thing you would if you wanted to make like a bookcase or something.
Yeah.
That kind of wood.
Okay.
Just a lot of boards. Apparently been like
Sounds like the trip was
collecting
worth it.
for years. It was, except I came back and I was like, where am I going to put all this wood? Because I already have a wood problem. And this is where I got sort of in that
Do you have a wood problem?
existential place. This may be surprising, but believe it or not, I have kind of a wood collection. So, I was like, this is literally another woodworker. And I think I see a lot of myself in this gentleman who's no longer with us. And I was just like, oh, wow, I am going to be putting Rachel in this exact same situation.
Okay.
You're hopefully decades down the road. But I was just like, okay, I don't need to do anything about this immediately.
No.
But I definitely need to do what I can to at least better organize and then clear and purge the things.
Nah, there will be some younger woodworker that will take all of your stuff and burden their wife.
Well, yeah. But I mean, it's just got me thinking because to my parents' credit, as their health has, moved along in their years and stuff like that, they have been super proactive about downsizing their house. They've downsized 3 times, gotten rid of stuff, passed things on, sold it, whatever. So they're, basically not going to be leaving a whole ton of stuff because they've had to be executors for several of their siblings and stuff
So they
like
know.
that. So they know what it's like to have to clean up the mess. So they've done a really good job preparing that. And I'm like, you know what? That's pretty cool. But life stage wise, we're still in the crap accumulation phase. But I'm like, okay, we need to put some guardrails on this somewhere. So it wasn't like making life-changing decisions, but I definitely came back and I was just like, I now have more wood than literally I'm taking the wood from somebody who didn't have
He had too much wood.
More wood than he would literally use in his lifetime. And then it's and now I'm taking that wood. I was just like, this is so ironic. I was like, I got to do something. So I'm going to really try to proactively reach out to woodworkers I know and be like, take this wood.
Yeah.
And really try and pass it along and not just hoard it myself. But even still, I think I've got more wood than I know what to do with. So, but that's part of where I came home and I was like, Rachel, we gotta purge some stuff out. The kids stuff and stuff around the house. The clutter just builds up over time. And we're busy and all that kind of stuff. So, we ended up with several bags of stuff from the kids' rooms, and the kids are kind of motivated too to, clear some things out. Ellie's finishing 6th grade, and so a lot of the elementary school stuff that she was into is kind of like, not as much of a thing anymore, which is natural. So definitely that kind of stuff is more on my mind. And I'm like, you know what? I think we might just be a little more motivated to proactively kind of purge something. So like stuff like the China, stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, we might be motivated to move some of that along. But in the meantime, I have this trailer full of wood and I literally don't have, storage to put that in. So I now have to build more shelving to store the wood that I just acquired, which I'd accounted for that. Like I'd been building storage because I've got a workshop and it's got like a crawl space underneath it. That's like a kind of a walking height crawl space. Mm-hmm. So I've been building shelving in there and I haven't built out the shelving the full length. So I was already planning to do that anyway.
So you have room to expand.
I have room to expand, but I think I'm going to pretty well fill that up just with this. And I was just like, okay, this is getting ridiculous.
But once you put it in there, like, is it going to stay in there?
Well, that's why I got a because I'm not building wood. I'm not building things as fast as I'm acquiring wood. I'm okay. And it's been like a COVID thing too. It's just, I'm an opportunist. So when I come across, a factory that's shutting down and I can pull the old planks out of it and keep some of that wood, it's like, that's cool. And I built like a bench out of it, but then I have like 13 other logs that I pulled from the same batch. And I'm like, ugh, okay, I got to move some of that. So anyway, I'm thinking about that a lot more.
Well, maybe if you connect with these wood friends, you can kind of give them a bunch of this cedar and oak and trade for maybe like one plank of something really interesting.
Or just give it to them because if I'm just ultimately going to be keeping it and storing it and moving it and no one's ever going to use it, I'm like, okay, I got to be realistic.
That too. Is there a local place you could like post something or?
I could probably like, even like through the kids like schools, I could probably reach out to like their shop classes and just be like, hey, y'all need some wood.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So like I definitely, but it takes time to coordinate all that kind of stuff. So I just got to get motivated to do it, but I'm getting there. But in the meantime, I'm building shelves. It's kids' last week of school. I mentioned that. Kids are having fun on the trampoline.
Nice.
They recently found the fun of bringing the garden hose onto the trampoline.
Oh yeah.
And doing all that. And I was like, are you going to like slip around and maybe get hurt? And I was like, well, all right, Ellie, try it out. I'm sure if it was something that people did all the time and got hurt, I would have heard about it by now.
Slipping around, yes. Getting hurt now.
Yeah. And she was pretty safe about it, but they had a blast. And then, to go with nostalgia, because of course, every marketing thing is geared towards us now. They have like the original Super Soakers.
Oh yeah.
Back. So I just came home the other day and Rachel had bought 2 Super Soaker 100s.
She mentioned that. She mentioned being pretty excited that they were back.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, she bought them.
Nice.
So I'm not the only one that impulse buys things sometimes, but it's pretty rare for her, but she did it. And the kids are using it and having a blast. So
terrific.
That's fun. And then Joseph, we got a home computer kind of set up because we had like one of our super old computers that recently broke.
Yeah.
And I was able to fix it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. But it for the business, it was like unusable. So I'm setting it up, just testing it out. And Joseph wanted to do this like 3D Lego design thing. So it's like through, what is it called? Bricklink. So it's like owned by Lego, but it's like a free software that you can download and it has like all the Lego pieces in there. So you can essentially do like 3D Lego building.
Oh.
So he wanted to do that. And I guess it's not really something you can do on like the iPad or whatever as much. So we tried setting that up. So he's now building all kinds of stuff.
I guess that's what the designers use to kind of like come up with new sets.
Yeah. I'm sure their software is a bit more advanced, but they've got like a whole ton of Lego, pieces in there, like cataloged in there, and you can make them all kinds of colors and all kinds of stuff. So he was rendering all these different, Hero Factory robots and all this kind of stuff.
That's cool.
So he's having a blast. So I'll probably never see him again. He's going to be glued to that thing. Excuse me. And I'm 77% towards my SACS goal.
Nice.
Still doing it. Yep. So I'm on track to hit it like early July now at this point.
That'll be
it's
1 month.
I know, it's just a month away.
Yeah.
I just got to keep up with the practice. That's all.
Fantastic.
I have slowed down a little bit in the practice because just life.
Yeah, well, you don't want to force it. You still want to have it be a fun thing.
Yeah, it's definitely still fun.
Yeah.
Like I'll be tired and it'll be like 10 o'clock at night and I'm like, I don't know. I could just sit on the couch here, but I'm like, no, I really enjoy playing. And, my kids don't go to sleep anyway. So, they stay up till like midnight or whatever. So I'm like, no, okay, I'll just go practice. I practice for like 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
Wow.
And have a blast. Yeah. I'm a night owl anyway. So, it's pretty easy. But, yep. So, still doing it. Still having fun.
Fantastic.
Yep. That's it.
I did not know. You've mentioned Careless Whisper a number of times on this show, and I've just been like, okay, yeah. I had no idea what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Until recently.
I'm sure you heard it.
I have.
Yeah, if you're on
I
the
never
internet.
knew that was what it was named. But you mentioned Careless Whisper, like, oh yeah, everybody knows this. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, at this point, I can't ask because he's mentioned it so many times. But I heard it and I saw it. I'm like, that's Careless Whisper. I've heard that. Yeah. I totally know that.
Exactly.
There we go.
I think it's like a resurgence thing.
It's the
like,
yeah. I was like,
it's a George
yeah.
Michael song, and it's like, I mean, it's from the 80s, obviously, but like
I had no idea.
I was familiar and kind of with the song, but I wouldn't have known what the name of it was.
Yeah, I definitely didn't.
But as soon as I started getting a saxophone, immediately everybody's like, oh, and I'm like, sure.
Yep. Super familiar.
Yeah.
Never knew the name though.
So I've practiced that song. It's not.
I had one of those like Leonardo DiCaprio meme moments where I was like snapping at the thing, like, oh,
yeah. Nice.
That's the thing that Brian talks about.
That's awesome. Very cool. Okay, we will wrap this thing up then. All right, I want to thank you all for watching. Leave us some feedback. Got lots of prompts today. Let us know how we're doing in the comments. Ask us questions, all that such stuff.
Let us know about if you've put your foot in your jeans pocket.
That is the most important thing, of course.
Not for most ladies, I understand, because your pockets can't handle feet. I'm sorry about that, but it's true.
I'm sorry too. Check out gouletpens.com for ink, paper, fountain pen needs. And I got some random fun facts. So we just had Memorial Day this past weekend.
That we did.
Which is kind of the kickoff for pool season.
That's
at least here in the States.
That's what we did.
So I looked up some pool facts.
Ooh.
Yes.
I was next to the pool on Memorial Day, drinking coffee.
Okay.
In jeans.
You had more pool involvement than I did. So according to the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance, which is apparently a thing.
I hope they have special hats.
There are 10.7 million swimming pools in the U.S. It's kind of a lot of pools.
That's a lot of pools.
97% of which are in private residences.
In Florida.
Oh, I'm pretty sure everybody in Florida's got a pool. The average cost of an in-ground pool is $35,000. And 8% of U.S. homes have a swimming pool, which is more than I would have thought.
That is a lot.
I think it's obviously heavily skewed towards the South.
Oh, yeah.
It's hotter.
Oh, yeah.
Makes sense. But
it's like I've seen.
They're not. There's some in Central Virginia here, but it's not like a given.
No, I've seen aerial footage of Florida subdivisions. It's like every single house. Everybody has a pool. It's wild.
Yeah. It's like rare to not have
yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's so stinking hot.
Yeah.
54% of the U.S. population cannot swim.
54?
54%. That was surprising to me.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then these facts are out of order. I'm going back to a dollar fact here. The average total cost of pool maintenance, so it's $35,000 for a pool, $3,000 to $6,000 a year for pool maintenance between the chemicals and setting it up for the season, winterizing it, all that kind of stuff.
Oh my.
Repairing cracks, all that, filters, the whole thing. Yeah. That was like, okay, not doing that. And then it's like, I think based on how much it like improves the value of your house, it's not as much as the pool costs.
Oh, when I was shot, when we were looking for homes, it was a detractor.
It was like a detractor.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Well, some people value it more, but I think it's like in total, it does not pay for itself financially based just on that. And then it costs to use it. So,
oh man, for $35,000, there are so many other things I would do to my home.
Yeah. What would you do with $35,000 for your home?
The first thing I would do would be to build out a 3-season room, because we have a large deck, and we have French doors that open from the living room onto the deck. Okay. And if we just took that space, went out onto the deck and closed it off a little bit, not fully insulated, but like
a screened in
glass
situation,
glass. But nothing underneath.
Okay.
So it's
So it's not like temperature control.
right, but it's they call it a 3-season room, meaning like
Okay.
it's okay for everything but winter.
okay.
And that would I could keep more plants out there. It would be
But it's like deck surface.
Yeah, deck
so
surface.
there's like, there's still like moisture and stuff that can
Yeah.
come up through the deck. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Or I think it's glass, but not just a screened-in porch. I don't
Okay.
really know how it works, but
Yeah.
I did some research, but I forgot it all. That would be the first thing I do,
Hmm.
and then redo the master bathroom
Mm.
because we have this weird we have a kind of a half. It's just a stall shower, but it's not like a
Mhm.
short stall shower. It's like a longer stall shower,
Okay.
but not a tub.
Mm.
But right in front where all the plumbing is, there's a really, really small like linen closet sort of deal. I want to
Okay.
get rid of that closet, make the shower bigger,
Mm.
find some other way to store all the medicine and random crap we have in there,
Right.
and just kind of like put some real tile down. There's just like,
Mm.
vinyl flooring in there.
Yeah.
That would make me happy.
Rachel and I really need to redo some of our bathroom stuff, but I know from previous experience at our last home that we had that there is no small bathroom project that if we touch one thing in there, it's going to be redoing a whole bunch of stuff. So we just haven't done that. We still just got that like linoleum that came in the house, whatever. And I'm just like, I don't want to redo the whole bathroom. So it's fine. Just keep the same stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. Those are some pool facts. That's
Fun.
all I got this week. Yep. Anyway, hope you all enjoy your swimming season, assuming you're in the northern hemisphere. And if you're not, then enjoy your winter. Anyway, that's all we got this week. We'll catch you on the next one. Right on.
Bye.